Need to get the Instagram. Where is it? Oh my God. There's so many different ways to stream. We are live. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Soundbooth Theater Live, and these are the cold reads of Marked Warlock. Now, okay, so hold on a second. For some reason, I think I exited. Oh my God, live video, dude. Instagram is terrible for streaming.
I have never heard of somebody live streaming on Instagram, so
Yeah. I gotta redo it now. I gotta redo it because I accidentally. Oh, Annie's here.
Hey, yeah,
hey.
sorry, I just got your message about. Hey,
Hey. Oh, well,
are you Shami?
Yeah,
She is
I'm
Shami.
Shami.
Sweet.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I have I ran out of time. I have one more retake set to do to get to Nick Shoop. I don't know if he's desperate for it, but I was gonna see how long your session's gonna be and if I could drop out for 10.
Oh yeah,
15
you can
more
come in
minutes.
and out as much as you want.
Okay, cool. I might go ahead and get that to him then, and then.
Come back.
Is that okay with you?
Okay. Yeah. That's totally fine. I can't
Is
figure
there
out.
anybody here? Oh, hi everybody.
Oh,
I
yeah,
see.
yeah,
I'm
there's
in the
plenty of people
comments
here.
now. Hi.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to skip the. I'm gonna have to skip the Instagram one because I don't know how to get it started back up. Oops. Whatever.
It happens.
Yep. But welcome everybody. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. We have with us today Shami Stovall, the author of Marked Warlock, and we have the narrator of Marked Warlock here, Annie Ellicott. And today, what we're working on is making figuring out the main character's voice, which will be me. Justin Thomas James is playing everybody else, as far as I know, as far as the male side of the cast. And so, Shami, can you give us a bit of a rundown, not just of Marked Warlock, but of yourself as an author, and what your journey's been so far?
Yeah, geez. Do you have 45 minutes? But no. My journey as an author, I started as an attorney. And it's soul-crushing work. Nobody goes to an attorney if they're having a good day. Okay,
That's correct. That's correct.
awful. And my husband was an attorney for a very long time, and he worked in the most soul-crushing of all attorney jobs, which was dependency, which is a court where they take children away from their parents,
Oh
and
boy.
then they have hearings about whether or not you can ever get your children back. So, it's not fun, is what I'm trying to say. I stopped working to be an author because I used to DM for us, tabletop gaming, and I wrote a book on the side. And when people read that, especially my husband, he was like, "Wow, you could be a professional author. This is really good." And everybody always told me the best thing I did about being a DM was making up stories. I would create the whole campaign from scratch, not like a pre-made campaign. And everyone was like, "Oh, geez, Shami, I go to sleep thinking about your stories. Like, you should be a professional storyteller." So my husband did support me while I learned the craft of writing, and eventually I hit. I mean, it's also a little bit of luck, right? You need to be a good author, but you also need to get lucky. You need to get eyes on. And I eventually became a full-time author. I started making more money than I had before. I made enough money that my husband could quit being an attorney. So, that was his reward for supporting me. He got to do it. He got to stuff that soul-crushing job. And then he also became an author because he was also a very good DM. But it's funny, the thing everybody really liked about his DMing is that he would make up new systems. So we wouldn't just play Dungeons and Dragons, we would play the new system that he made, because he loves numbers, making systems work, stuff like that. So Lit RPG is 100% his jam because he loves numbers. Just if he could have married numbers, he might have done that rather than me. But no, I'm lucky. He doesn't get to marry numbers. So that's what happened. And now we're both authors, right?
I love
Full-time.
this story. What a happy story. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I have to interrupt you because part of this sounds like a dream to me, right? Like support the wife. She starts a new career. She completely steamrolls my own income. And then I get to be a lazy
Follow
piece
your
of shit.
dreams.
Like, that sounds
That
amazing.
is not
to
what
me.
the story is, Jeff. You missed part of the
No,
story.
no. That's totally the best part of the story.
Right.
Except, like, I would take full advantage of that, but like it'd probably be 2 weeks before I got completely bored and had to start a new career, like he did. So how long did that take? Like, did he have? Like, I want to hear about the fantasy time of nothingness. Like, how long did that last?
Well, then you're going to be a little disappointed because there was no fantasy time of nothing. Because he actually wrote his first book, The Corrupted Core, while he was an attorney.
He wasted it. Not even a little bit.
He was reading Dungeon Core so hardcore. I mean, I'm sure you've read some Dungeon Cores and whatnot, but
And he's narrated a Dungeon Core. Dinosaur Dungeon.
Yeah, there we go.
Dinosaur
So
Dungeon.
I didn't know Dungeon Core was a genre until one night we're going to bed. You know, we're tucking in, and he's like, Shami, if you could be a dungeon, what kind of dungeon would you be? And I was seriously like, what the fuck? Are you high? Like, why are you? What kind of question is this?
That is a total stoner question.
Yeah. And I was, you know, like most normal people be like, well, like a sex dungeon? What are you talking about? Is this flirting?
Like most normal people, yeah. That's where my mind goes when I hear dungeon too.
And he was like, no, Shami, like if you were an elemental dungeon, or, you know, what if you had a dungeon full of fairies, or what kind of theme dungeon would you have? And, you know, and then we talked for hours about that. So John, of all the lit RPG, Dungeon Core is his favorite, like, and so that's the book he wrote while being an attorney, because he just loved it so much. I mean, seriously, if he could have married numbers, he would. But if he couldn't, he would have married Dungeon Core, you know, before he married me. That's how much he loves Dungeon Core. He read every single book in the genre, and then he was like, I'm going to write my own, you know. So The Corrupted Core is a Dungeon Core book, and it was a complete work of fashion. He just really, really loved the genre. So he did it while being an attorney, and it did well, you know what I'm saying? And then when he quit, you know, he got to quit a job that he hated. He already had like his budding author career, you know what I'm saying? So there wasn't a time of where he was just doing nothing.
Wasted.
Yeah. John, I think, likes to have a purpose. You know, he's told me that many times, where he really wants to have a purpose.
Yeah.
He wants to do something. He wants to have a reason to wake up. So I don't think he's the type of guy.
Purpose.
Yeah. Wow, God, the reason for waking in the morning. Damn. But yeah, so.
Okay,
And then,
so spoiler alert, by the way, we are working on Demon Card Enforcer, which is John Stovall's first book, right? First one that he's going to be publishing.
Cool.
well, it's not his first book.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But this is the first like card game book that he's doing. So, like I said, he loves making systems. He made the entire card game system for the book, and it's not just like you pull cards and it gives you a magical ability.
Yeah.
It's an entire thing, but it's really, really fun because I don't know if you've ever seen Yu-Gi-Oh! Or even some of the card game books that are kind of out right now. A lot of them don't really involve the person who is the deck bearer, someone who has like a deck of cards. But he has an entire system called Mantles, which can apply to you as the person who's playing the card game. So you can enhance yourself or do interesting things with yourself. He has stuff that changes the battlefield. He has stuff that are creatures. He has companion cards that are sentient. You know, they're a little bit different than the other types of monsters. He has ways, there are dungeons where you can get new cards, but technically there are also gods in his world that give out packs of cards. And it's definitely funny while being serious in a lot of ways too. I think it's his best book he's written. Now, obviously, I'm biased because he's my husband. I love him dearly, but it's really good. So I'm really excited for that.
Well, that is very
it's coming
exciting.
out in September, right? Or I can't remember the release date, but
I'm not exactly sure. Justin is taking it, and I think he's getting started on it pretty soon. And cold reads will start coming out. I think we'll see, but definitely excited about that. But more excited at this moment about Time Marked Warlock. Tell us a bit about Adair Finch and his story.
So Adair Finch, 10 years prior to the start of book 1, and I guess these are some spoilers, but they're very minor spoilers because this is kind of explained in chapter 1 and 2. His brother was killed. So him and his brother have this PI business. They're warlocks. They're super special because they have made a pact with Kronos, who is the Titan of time in mythology. But so he's like a time god. And in my book, the stronger the magical creature you make a bond with, the stronger the powers are. So clearly Kronos, very strong. Adair and his brother Carter are the only ones that have ever made a pact with Kronos. And so they have the ability to rewind time, but only for a 24-hour period. So they usually take on a bunch of these cases, magical cases, where, witches, wizards, werewolves, things like that have a problem. And in the past, they always solved them because with the power of rewinding time, how do you not catch the bad guy? You have infinite amount of time to gather all the evidence, to find out who it is, to do strange things because nobody really remembers when they rewind time. However, there was an incident that happened when they were on a case, and Carter ended up dying. So, and it's explained a little bit more in detail, how the power works, how that was even possible to happen. But it really crushed Adair. He, was riding high. It was like in his 20s. These guys were, jet setting around the world. Everybody knows them as famous people who come in and just solve all the problems. He thought he was immortal basically because he's got a rewind power. And so when he loses his brother, it's extra devastating. Not just I lost my brother, but like a shattering of your worldview, because obviously he's not immune to all damage. And so he just gave up on life basically. He stopped being a PI, he stopped being a warlock, he stopped doing everything. And for 10 years basically he just kind of lived in his apartment and people forgot that he was even alive. And the story starts off with somebody knocking at his door in the middle of the night at like 4 a.m. And it's a little girl, Bree, and she comes to him and she says that her mother said if anything bad ever happened, you need to go to this guy because he'll solve it. And the entire first book basically is now Adair Finch. He can rewind time, and starting from very early in the morning, he is going to solve the murder of Bree's mother because she was just murdered just a couple of hours ago, and now Finch has taken on the case. And I really love this book because it's definitely and then he got his mojo back type of story, right? Because he starts off very grumpy. He's not in a good mood. He wants to be left alone. He's basically living in his casket. He doesn't care. But Bree, who is fun-loving, so there's like the grumpy dynamic, the sunshine dynamic. Bree is a sunshine dynamic, even if her mother was killed. I mean, she's sad for a couple moments in the book, but she's definitely the ever optimistic one, and she definitely helps Finch get out of what is basically the worst moment in his life. And they team up with the mischief spirit Cull, who is mostly a pigeon in the book, but a talking pigeon. She helps out. So they investigate this murder, and it's just a great time.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. I'm
Annie?
going to jump out for a bit and come right back as soon as I can. Okay.
Cool.
See you guys soon.
Awesome. So yeah, as we said before, Annie is the one narrating this book, and she's gone to take care of something. She'll be right back, but she's basically gonna be our the person directing how things go here. She's directed Justin in his voices. Basically, the way that we do that with projects like this is let me go ahead and pull up the work file here.
Oh wow!
Looks like a gel electrophoresis. You can see here all of Annie's lines as character. This is her narration lines, and these are my lines. So when Justin comes to his lines here, I think what he does is he'll delete the direction here, but Annie leaves directions in the script or the set for the characters, and Justin makes decisions based on that. But for me, since it's only one character, but I still have most of the male character lines, it's incredibly important for me to get really good direction from both of you guys. So hopefully she'll come back pretty soon and show her, give some opinions on the performance. But I think what we'll do at this point is just let you guys listen to a bit of it. Start from the beginning. We can listen to Annie's narration and, let her set the tone of this audiobook.
Chapter 1.
Do you guys hear it?
Oh, yeah, I hear.
All right.
It was extremely important to note that Adair Finch woke at exactly 4:34 a.m. Someone was banging on his front door. Finch opened his eyes and immediately reached for his phone on the nightstand. Most warlocks wouldn't have cared what time it was, but Finch wasn't most warlocks. He marked the time with his magic, threw off his blankets, and then stood from his bed, his vision blurred. Finch crept out of his tiny bedroom, the banging echoing throughout his otherwise silent abode. If a random passerby had managed to glance into Finch's apartment, they would have assumed Finch lived with 4 undisciplined children. Dirty dishes covered every available surface. Clothes piles decorated every corner. The only thing missing was crude crayon drawings across the walls. But Finch lived alone. He had for a long time. The banging on the front door grew frantic. "Help!" A muffled voice called from the other side. "Help! Please! I need help!" Panicked shouting wasn't a common occurrence in the Applegate apartments. Most everyone kept to themselves, which was the way Finch liked it. No one had come calling for Finch's help for many years, though. Who was at his door now? Once close, Finch peered out the spy hole and stared out into the hallway, his vision distorted into a fisheye perspective. A young girl paced back and forth, just beyond the boundary of his apartment. She stopped in front of his door, her shoulders shaking, her dark brown hair a mess. She grabbed at the long locks, her unsteady hands twisting into a tight grip. How old was she? She wore a black hoodie and a pair of faded jeans. Her sneakers, worn and scuffed, weren't marked by any designer or brand. The girl seemed plain, perhaps too plain. Finch assumed, given her short stature and small size, she was 12 or 13, which almost made him suspicious. Why was a child banging on his apartment door? Her muffled sobs betrayed her earnest distress. Even if this was some sort of elaborate ruse, Finch couldn't bring himself to ignore it. He opened the door, but he kept the chain lock in place, allowing only a small crack's worth of space to peer into the corridor.
All right, and this is where he comes in. So, Shami, real quick, if you can just lower your mic a little bit, it's like up your nose. So when when you're breathing, it's going right into the mic. Okay. So it was funny. Your first direction here for the character was Spawn himself, right? What's his name? Shit.
Well, I
what's
always
his name?
imagine him as Goliath from the Gargoyles.
Right.
Yeah.
I think of Spawn, but I did love Gargoyles. Keith David. There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
But we tried that, and he seemed a little too big and menacing, and sort of a little too much, right?
Yeah.
But actually that cover that you used for Goodreads kind of gave me it kind of reminded me of Benedict Cumberbatch a bit.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah, that's
like
a good
just the face, the hairstyle and everything. And the pose. So, but from what I'm hearing so far in the story, this is him getting up, kind of grumpy, groggy. He's depressed from the year prior, the events that you told us about. So he's going to be not very enthusiastic. Right?
Yep.
So there's another character I'm using sort of like Benedict's face, his performance and everything in my mind when I'm voicing him. His name is, or he's from a book called Dungeon Lord. So I'm thinking I'm going to try that character first, and we'll start from here. His voice, Rusty. So Rusty, you mean like he's barely, like maybe he's cleared his throat once since waking up, right?
Yes, exactly.
Who are you?
Finch asked, his voice rusty. When had he last spoken to anyone? Had it really been weeks?
Maybe we can go rustier?
Yeah,
Feel free to interrupt me at any time. These are cold reads, so don't worry about any of that. Anytime you have something to say, I can just always stop and listen.
okay, sounds great.
Okay. Who are you?
DoorDash and Amazon had significantly cut down on his need to interact with magicless mortals. The girl whirled on her heel, her eyes red and puffy. She rubbed at her face and practically slammed herself into the door, obviously thinking it would fly open. The chain rattled as it held in place, keeping her at bay. "I need help!" she cried. "Are you Adair Finch? Or Carter Finch? I need to find them. Please. Please. I need the help of a warlock." Of a warlock. Finch hissed the moment she uttered warlock.
Keep your voice down. I'm Adair Finch. Ah, crap. I accidentally hit my stupid spacebar. I'm Adair Finch. Where are your parents? Let's have a little look around.
Lock.
Keep your voice down.
Lock.
Keep your voice down. I'm Adair Finch. Where are your parents? Maybe a little more exasperation there. Where are your parents? There we go. Adair Finch. Where are your parents?
That's why I'm here. Please, there's not much time. The girl pushed on the door, rattling the chain a second time. Tears streamed down her reddened face. Mom was... and... Papa... All her control left her. She sobbed louder than before. Finch closed the door, removed the chain, and then opened the door wide. He grabbed the girl by the shoulder, pulled her into his apartment, and slammed the door shut afterward.
All right, we're going to move up a little bit here. And so far, how's he sounding?
He sounds great.
Okay.
This is also the first time I've heard this too, so I'm over here like grinning like an idiot because I'm like, wow, I wrote that. Those were my words. But you did a fantastic job. This is really fascinating to watch, actually, because that was great, and it was so simple how you did extra takes and then like recorded over it. So very impressed. Yeah, I like this a lot. Is Annie doing Bree?
Yep.
Oh, okay, yeah, that was perfect. I was like, wow, she does sound like a 12-year-old. Not that I want to be like, oh, she's a 12-year-old girl, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Yeah, that was great.
Normally, Finch would never use his sorcery in front of random strangers, but the girl obviously knew about warlocks, or else she wouldn't have been shouting for one. No need to hide his abilities now. Finch handed her the coffee mug once the water inside had cooled just a tiny amount.
Drink this.
He demanded. The girl
Gruff and overly harsh. Okay.
pulled just a tiny amount.
Drink this.
He demanded.
Kill some space here. Drink this.
He demanded. The girl flinched at his gruff and rather hostile tone. It didn't help with her crying. After a moment of tapping on the side of the warm mug, Finch took a deep breath and tried to remember how to interact with other human beings. In a forced but calm voice, he offered her the mug a second time.
This will help soothe your nerves. Let's see how that sounds.
Human beings. In a forced but calm voice, he offered her the mug a second time.
This will help soothe your nerves.
The girl sniffed. She rubbed at her nose, and with a shaky hand, she took the mug. Finch turned his attention to the living room.
I love
If
when
a
you
family
guys
of
add
raccoons had
some of the
broken-
sound effects like that, like tapping on the side of the cup and whatnot.
Yeah.
That's just beautiful. It's like chef's kiss, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Well,
it's fantastic.
when we do it ourselves as well, when we actually take objects, use props and stuff, it helps with the actual vocal performance, right? It's like props for actors helps get them deeper into the scene. Right?
Finch turned his attention to the living room. If a family of raccoons had broken in and started nesting, no one would have been able to tell the difference. Finch stomped his way over to the second recliner. His recliner was clean and positioned next to the TV, away from the window. The second recliner wasn't in the best of shape, and most of last week's clothes were piled on top. He shoved all the laundry onto the floor. Something clanked when it hit. Something metal bundled inside the dirty clothes. But Finch ignored that.
Here.
But Finch ignored that.
Here. Gruff. More gruff.
Finch ignored that.
Let's get rid of that.
Finch ignored that.
Here. It's not anger. It's annoyance, right?
Yeah, he wants her to sit down and calm down. So the thing he gave her in the coffee mug is like a special type of tea.
Mhm.
I guess there's a running joke in the book because it's his last thing of tea, but because he rewinds time so often, one of the jokes is he's constantly giving her the last bag of tea. It has magical properties that will calm her down so that she's not as hysterical. Because again, her mother died not but like 2 hours ago. So
Right. Let's try one more. Like impatient, but like I don't know, resigned.
yeah, where he's just like, just drink your thing, sit right here. You know, it'll work. Just do it.
Here. I think that's a good combination of not angry at her, but annoyed.
That,
Here.
he said, his gruff tone back in full force.
You can sit here. You can sit here. You can sit here.
The girl made her way to the recliner. She barely glanced around as she took a seat on the very...
Just a little bit here.
Her striking blue eyes would have been beautiful if not for the bloodshot red around her irises. She panned her gaze over her surroundings. After a deep inhale, she glanced down at her mug. What was in this?
Midnight raspberry leaves. Midnight raspberry leaves. Leaves.
Finch stated. And while that sounded like a scent of candle found at Bed Bath & Beyond, it was actually a rare type of plant that only witches grew on special occasions. Midnight raspberries were said to cure nightmares, and the leaves, when brewed, brought with them a supernatural level of calm. That was until they were fully digested and left the body. Then all nightmares and anxieties would return.
What's your name? What's your name?
Finch asked.
Your name?
Finch asked. Bree, she muttered. Then she finally met Finch's cold stare. And you're really Adair Finch?
That's right.
Really Adair Finch?
That's right. Like, unfortunately. That's right.
Bree glanced around the apartment a second time. Are you sure you're not a hobo pretending to be Adair Finch?
All right.
Adair Finch?
All right. Nope. A little bit sooner.
Pretending to be Adair Finch?
All right.
Finch said with a groan as he stood up from his recliner.
Get out. Get out.
No, wait!
I'm not here to be judged by children. There's the door.
Wait!
I'm not here to be judged by children. There's the door.
It's okay to laugh while you're doing this, right? 'Cause,
absolutely.
yeah, one of my favorite dynamics is this sort of like someone who is just like, oh, geez, what are we even doing? While the other person, you know, making making funny observations. So a lot of the book has things like that where not just Bree, but another running joke, like a gag throughout the whole book, is somebody looking at Adair and being like, why is a homeless man walking this child around or something like that? Because he's very, at the very beginning of the book, for most of the book, he's like unkept, he's just, he's not living his best life. So, people comment on his appearance quite a few times. It's just funny. So that was beautiful. That was a beautiful interaction.
Yeah, let's hear it. Let's hear it play out.
Are you sure you're not a hobo pretending to be Adair Finch?
All right.
Finch said with a groan as he stood up from his recliner.
Get out.
No, wait!
I'm not here to be judged by children. There's the door.
Finch pointed. Bree held up a hand. Please, I'm sorry, it's just... Mom always said the Finch brothers were powerful warlocks. The most powerful warlocks she knew. I didn't think you would live like this. She gestured to their surroundings. Or wear clothing like that. Finch scratched at his outfit. His ratty t-shirt had more holes than a colander, and his sweatpants had stains that only magic could cure. It likely didn't help that he hadn't cut his dark, coppery hair in quite some time. It practically reached his shoulders, and the stubble bothered him. He scratched at his chin, making a mental note to correct the problem. Finch begrudgingly sat back down.
Okay, Annie is back. Welcome back, Annie. So at this moment, Shami and I have kind of settled on casting Benedict Cumberbatch as our
Nice.
warlock. So we'll see how that works out. You have the same veto / interrupting / directing powers that Shami does in this stream as well. So if you have any objections to anything that I'm doing here, feel free to interrupt and just have fun.
And I really love Bree's voice. Like that.
Oh, good.
It's chef's kiss. I made the joke. I was like, sounds just like a 12-year-old, but it does.
Good.
It sounds almost exactly how I imagined her. So
I'm so glad. I struggled with it at first because I didn't want it to sound... I don't know. When you're playing a child, you don't want it to sound cartoonish.
Or annoying. I
Yeah, or
actually was
annoying.
afraid that
Yeah.
it would be an annoying voice or something. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, she's supposed to be like the sunshine of the book, the very optimistic, happy one. And
Right.
I think you nailed it. So it's great.
Good. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, let's see. Got to start with scratching my beard. Okay, where we at?
Sat back down.
I don't know what to tell you, kid.
He muttered.
That was a long time ago. Kid.
He muttered.
That was a long time ago.
You're still a warlock who helps witches, though, right? Mom said that you were a PI
I'm
and that
retired.
And that
I'm retired. Snapped.
Mom said that you were a PI and that
I'm retired.
I think you should push it back a hair.
Push it back a hair.
that I...
I'm retired.
Finch snapped.
Oh,
Bree fidgeted with her mug. After a strained moment of silence, she asked,
what about Carter? Mom said your brother was...
He's dead.
Your brother was...
He's dead. Less emotion even?
I would go with a little less emotion.
Mom said your brother was...
He's dead.
Yeah.
Finch had made the statement with all the emotion of a dictionary entry, but that was the only way he could talk about his brother anymore. Just facts. No reminiscing. But the information didn't seem to sit well with Bree. She stared a hole into her mug, her unblinking gaze becoming watery all over again. Finch leaned forward.
Why don't we back up? Why were you wandering around, shouting about warlocks? If your mother knows me, she must have also known to tell you to keep quiet about my profession. Is that a little too aggressive, or is he trying to pull himself back at this
Pretty
point?
abrasive at first. Yeah, he has to learn to soften up with her. So I think starting out... Sorry, I should let Shami jump in here before me at some point.
Oh no, that's very accurate. At the very beginning of the book, he is very not. He doesn't like acting with children or doing anything with children. He's very gruff. Snappy. A lot of his dialogue is like, ugh, like, what are you even doing? And throughout the course of the book, he does soften up. He likes Bree. Bree's ever optimistic attitude, finally tears down some of his walls. So it's a nice character arc.
Yeah.
Why don't we back up? Why were you wandering around, shouting about warlocks? If your mother knows me, she must have also known to tell you to keep quiet about my profession.
I had to yell,
Bree whispered.
She told me that if I was ever in trouble, I needed to find Adair and Carter Finch as quickly as possible.
Who's your mother? What's her name?
As possible.
Who's your mother? What's her name?
Most people who knew the names of warlocks were also one of the magical themselves. A witch, another warlock, or even a mortal under the power of a curse. Something. If Bree's mother knew Finch's name and profession, he likely knew of her in turn.
My mom is Vera Blackstone. My mom is Vera Blackstone.
Oh, what?
Finch's eyebrows shot for his hairline.
Vera? Really?
Hairline.
Vera? Really? Is this a name that's like many years back?
Oh yeah, like a decade or over a decade ago, he knew her.
Hairline.
Vera? Really?
It had been a long time since Finch had seen her. The last time was at her wedding.
That needs more space. Really?
It had been a long
There we
time
go.
since Finch had seen her. The last time was at her wedding. She was an interesting witch, one who loved to mingle in the affairs of the magicless. She always had the latest scoop on all the dealings of mortal men.
Why isn't Vera here with you?
Despite Bree's midnight raspberry tea, her lip quivered.
That's why I'm here.
What happened? What happened?
Someone broke into our house
Bree sipped the last of her tea, tranquility returning.
A man, I think. He snuck in. He was waiting in the kitchen when I went downstairs.
Who all do you live with? Tell me everyone who was in the house at the time.
It's just me, my mom, and my papa. The intruder was someone else.
Vera married a warlock.
There was someone else.
Vera married a warlock.
Finch stated. He narrowed his eyes as he tried to recall the name.
L something... Lark or...
The name.
L something... Lark or...
Papa's name is Liam.
Yes. Liam.
Finch remembered him. Liam was a warlock who had made pacts with household spirits. A smaller man who loved crafting, who was always working on something new. That was how he'd met Vera. She had gone to him looking for magical devices to use in her garden. Finch rubbed at his chin.
If someone broke into the house, Vera probably knew about it.
She didn't.
Bree muttered, her gaze unfocused.
Trust me, kid. She's a witch who takes special care of her house.
Mom didn't know. The man came out of nowhere.
Finch scoffed.
Look.
Nowhere.
Look.
The intruder was there.
Bree shouted. She stood from the recliner, her mug spilling to the floor. More tears welled in the corners of her eyes.
I saw him. He...
Bree grabbed the bottom of her hoodie with both hands.
I need your help because the intruder killed Mom. And then he took Papa, and I'm afraid he might come back for me, too.
Finch glanced.
Just a little more space there.
I'm afraid he might come back for me, too.
Finch glanced at the clock on the wall. 4:47 a.m.
All right, that's the end of the first chapter. Okay, so any more notes from either of you? Any specific lines you want me to retake? Anything like that? Any adjustments to the voice? Anything?
No, I like it. I think that's a great voice for Liam.
Yeah, I had a great time. That was awesome. I really like Bree's voice. I really like the voice that you're doing here. If it's Benedict Cumberbatch or whatever his name is, that was a great choice. It has that appropriate level of gruff and grumpy, but he still sounds like he knows what he's talking about.
Excellent. Okay. Well, let's see what chapter 2 has in store for us. And by the way, either of you, I'm planning to work on this set. It's probably going to take me at least 3 hours on this set because that's a lot of dialogue. But I mean, it's already fun. I'm having fun with this character. I like the plot so far. I like this. I like my my partner in the scene. This is great. So if either of you guys want to bail at any point, just let me know and we'll say goodbye. Cool. But I'm going till 3, so
Sweet.
Up to you guys.
Oh, okay.
I'll hang a bit longer.
Cool.
I'll let you know when I'm leaving.
Yep. And again, anytime you want to rudely interrupt me, it's totally fine. All right.
I'll let my kitty know that too.
Yeah, good. You want to bring him? Is he around?
Yeah, he's right here. I'm interrupting his slumber, but this is the price he pays for getting fed and housed.
Oops.
Aw,
That's my kitty.
look at how cute he is.
There he is.
My baby. He's my baby.
He is a very pampered animal, I can tell.
He is the most beloved cat,
It's ridiculous. I probably should talk to a therapist.
Thank you for the kitty. All right, here goes. Oops. When did this happen? When did this happen?
Finch asked, his voice low.
A few hours ago.
Bree whispered as she sank back onto the recliner. Her hands shook as she brought her knees up to her chest. After a deep breath, she closed her eyes.
I ran away while Papa fought the intruder. I didn't know where to go or who to talk to. The Mortar police won't know what to do, and Mum said to find the Finch brothers if ever there was trouble. She said you and Carter would help.
Damn.
Finch.
Why does it keep doing that? Oh, that's why. Damn.
Finch rubbed his temple.
Oops. Whoops.
Said you and Carter would help. She said you and Carter would help.
Damn.
Finch rubbed his temple, his eyes still on the clock. If only he had marked the time before going to sleep instead of right when he woke. If he had done that, he might have been able to undo the whole situation. But as it stood, Finch didn't have that ability.
Will you please help me?
Bree whispered.
Had your mother angered someone? Oops.
Finch asked, ignoring her question. Bree perked up, her eyes wide.
So you will help me?
Just answer my questions. Had your mother angered someone? Or something? Nope.
Bree quickly shook her head.
No, she hadn't angered anyone.
Had anyone been coming around the house who hadn't been before?
Angered anyone.
Had anyone been coming around the house who hadn't before? I keep pushing the wrong button.
Again, Bree shook her head. She held her knees tighter against her chest and scrunched her eyes shut. Although she still had the magic of the calming tea in her system, the situation obviously still got to her, especially with intense questioning. Finch sighed and tried to think of simpler, easier questions.
Had anything happened yesterday that was out of the ordinary? Before the intruder arrived, I mean. Anything at all. Even the slightest incident might be important.
No,
Bree whispered.
it was a normal day. Nothing had happened.
So there were no leads and no suspects? Finch exhaled harder than before. He had solved murders with less information in the past. Suspects? Finch exhaled harder than before. He had solved murders with less information in the past, but it had been arduous. And with a child involved, he expected the ordeal would be more painful than it needed to be. Bree opened her eyes and stared.
So, you will help me?
Oops. The city police have a warlock or two under contract to help them solve crimes when they involve witches or other magical phenomenon. The city police have a warlock or two under contract to help them solve crimes when they involve witches or other magical phenomenon. Every time. Okay.
Finch met her gaze with a cold one of his own. Finch.
They work right alongside the detectives. They'll help you just fine.
Of his own.
They work right alongside the detectives. They'll help you just fine.
Mom said the Mortar police and those who work for them are incompetent.
Bree gripped her pants.
If you can't help me.
But she never...
Okay, we'll skip ahead just a little bit.
Perhaps, with his magic, he could help the local supernatural division of the police force get on the right track, and then leave Bree in their care.
I'll help you.
Finch drawled.
Just want to show as much pain in that as possible.
Right.
In their care.
I'll help you.
Finch drawled. Bree's eyes went wide.
Really?
He stood up from his recliner.
I'll do some preliminary investigations to help the police catch the murderer, but I'm not going to do anything else. Understand?
He does so much more.
The halfway agreement didn't seem to sit well with Bree. She stayed seated on the recliner, her gaze falling to the dirty floor. After a quiet moment of contemplation, she finally nodded.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I really need your help, even if it's just a little bit of it.
Finch glanced around the living room,
Just like,
regretting
fuck.
all the life choices that had brought him here. Regretting all the life choices that had brought him here.
We need to go to your house so I can look around.
Bree leapt off the recliner. She fidgeted with the sleeves of her hoodie as she said,
The police are probably there already. I think the neighbors might have heard everything. There were sirens when I was running down the street.
Damn. They'll be looking for you.
Finch stated. Bree tensed, her posture stiff.
Please don't send me with the mortals. Please. I'm worried. If the intruder comes back, the mortal police won't be able to protect me.
That was probably true. If the murderer had the means to kill a witch and subdue a warlock, he was probably too dangerous for a normal police officer to handle. Would the murderer return for Bree, though? Since Finch had no idea what the man's motives were, it was difficult to tell.
You'll stay with me.
Well,
You'll stay with me.
he could protect her if she was close, even if he hated the thought of traveling around with a sad child the entire time. Then Finch reached for a pile of laundry. He dug through the clothes, tossing aside anything he deemed irrelevant. Then he found the coat he needed. Finch tugged it free from a wad of gym clothes and brushed it off.
If we go to my house, won't the police take me? If we go to my house, won't the police take me?
Oh, whoops.
Which one do you like better?
The second one.
Off.
If we go to my house, won't the police take me?
Bree whispered. Finch tossed her the coat. It hit her in the chest, and Bree wrapped her arms around it in an awkward catch. Then she turned it around and frowned. It was a thick brown coat, favored by rangers or particularly burly hikers. The fur-covered collar gave it an extra rugged feeling, but all the manliness was defeated by the streak of glitter on the left sleeve. The shimmery, almost rainbow stripe sparkled when the light hit it just right.
What is this?
Bree asked.
Put it on. Excuse me.
What is this?
Put it on. The magicless won't see you. They'll see someone who belongs. Let's try it again.
Is this?
Put it on. The magicless won't see you. They'll see someone who belongs.
Finch grabbed some semi-clean clothes from the next pile over.
If you're in a crowd, you'll just be another nameless face. If you're next to me, they'll see you just as my... If you're in a crowd, you'll just be another nameless face. If you're next to me, they'll see you as just my assistant. No one will see Bree Blackstone as long as you are wearing it.
What if we run into a witch, or a warlock, or someone else magical?
Bree slipped her thin arms into the huge sleeves of her new coat.
What will happen then?
They'll see the real you, and they'll think you're wearing a stupid coat. Let's try. I don't know. I might be able to do that better.
Yeah.
What will happen then?
They'll see the real you, and they'll think you're wearing a stupid coat.
Once Bree was dressed, Finch realized the coat was about 10 times too big. Bree could swim around inside it. Hell, the coat could double as a tent. Despite the fact that it was oversized, it would still work. That Finch was sure of. The coat's magic would shield Bree from the eyes of the mortals, which meant Finch would only have to be on guard when dealing with the magical.
It smells like dirty socks.
Bree whispered, her nose scrunched.
That's probably the best case scenario in this situation.
Inside. He stormed over to the bathroom and slid inside. Within a few seconds, he changed into a pair of wrinkled slacks, a button-up shirt, and a black coat. Then Finch grabbed a pair of boots off the bathroom counter and slipped his feet into them. It was nearly 4:57 a.m. Finch had 23 hours and 37 minutes before he would need to reset time.
All right, we're going to skip ahead just a little bit.
It's been fantastic so far.
Yeah.
I know that this is stupid, but I always assume when I'm writing that I'm doing it terribly. To be frank, I just must have done something terrible. But then sometimes when I reread my own work, I'm like, wow, that was funny. That was great. Who wrote that? Because it wasn't me. But yeah, that was great. It was some great interactions. It's, not that I want to be like, it's all about me. But sometimes it's difficult to make. Her mother just died like 2 hours ago. So how are we supposed to make this scene not just depressing, you know what I'm saying? Like the most depressing thing you've ever read in your life. But also not to make it whimsical or too comical because somebody did just die, you know what I'm saying? So, but I want the tone to be like, obviously this is going to be an adventure. We're going to do a murder mystery. The character arcs, or at least the flags for character mark growth should be, you should see them now that he's going to be a better guy, they're going to catch this guy, that kind of thing. So,
Right.
but I'm like, wow, Shami, you nailed it. But again, that's just, I'm being crazy, but I always worry. I was seriously like, we're going to do these cold reads and it's going to be terrible. These are going to be terrible chapters. He's going to be like, God, why were you even doing this?
Bill Underbridge has some words of encouragement.
They were written goodly. Yes. Thank you. Well, again, I always doubt. When I finish a chapter, all this kind of stuff, I'm like, oh, that was hot garbage. And then when I reread it again, I'm like, oh, okay, whew. Somebody else came in here and improved this.
To me, that's the best attitude an author can take because then they're always going to be trying to improve. So there you go. Good job.
Yeah.
Keep doubting yourself and writing well.
Keep doubting myself. That's right.
All right.
Are you ready for Princess Problems 18? Gather the whole family together for this fun, animated adventure. Poor Princess Attica is at it again when...
I love that side joke as well. That is it results in a funny scene, at least. It's just...
Poor Princess Attica is at it again when...
Finch slammed the power button. The fact that there were 18 movies in a franchise called Princess Problems clearly proved they were all living in a simulation no one was maintaining. Finch couldn't stand listening to the preposterous sales pitch for something so trite.
No one was
Mom took me to see Princess Problems 16 when it was in theaters,
Bree muttered. She never turned to face Finch. Her breath coated the window so thick it was impossible to see out of. Yet she stared directly into the fog regardless. Finch hated the commercial even more for stirring up such memories. If he was going to watch Bree while investigating, he needed to remain calm, cool, and collected.
Let's focus on the task at hand. You said your house is over this way?
Finch turned the vehicle toward an orchard, far from the bustle of Stockton's high-traffic areas.
Yeah.
Bree pointed to a road leading away from the highway.
Go that way. Just keep driving. It's the last house on the road, by the single street light.
Finch did.
All right, we'll skip ahead just a little bit.
Finch parked his Toyota a good 200 feet from the first police car. Then he switched off the engine and slid out. He turned his attention to Bree.
Stay here. This will only take a moment. Skip ahead just a little bit more.
He had left it in the car, in the glove compartment. Finch turned on his heel and stomped over to the passenger side door. He opened it, only to be greeted by Bree's sniffling. She wiped tears from her eyes as she glanced up. A long moment of silence stretched between them.
What are you doing?
Long moment of silence stretched between them.
What are you doing?
Finch demanded. Between them.
What are you doing?
Finch.
Maybe even lower, right? Like he's looking around for people to see a crying girl in his car. You know, like.
Yeah. It's stretched between them.
What are you doing? What are you doing? like he doesn't remember what human functions are. All right, let's see. What do we like? What do we like best?
Long moment of.
Start here. What are you doing? What are you doing?
I like that.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
I like that one.
This one?
Yeah, the understated. What are you doing?
Yeah. What are you doing?
He's like, you can just like this. You can hear the stress, but he's also like driving and trying to keep cool and like.
Well, he's out of the car at this point.
Oh, sorry. I.
That's all right. But because he's standing outside, he's got the door open.
Okay, yeah.
He's like looking around, like looking at her.
Right.
Fuck
What
me.
are you doing? Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Well, it's more discreet. It's like, come on, let's not make a scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. That's the one. What are you doing?
Finch demanded. Bree swallowed, then managed to whisper.
I was just thinking about Mom. I'll never see her again. And what will happen to Papa?
She glanced at the fog dancing between the trees and clasped her hands tightly together. Finch silently cursed himself for thinking he could leave the girl all alone in a car. Even with the nerve-calming tea, she was still shaken by the recent events and scared of her surroundings. Leaving her alone would only intensify her anxieties.
You don't have to worry anymore. You don't have to worry anymore. In a gruff.
I love that. I love how stilted it is. He's like, I'm talking to a child.
Well, I really like this line because, something my husband said. He said that he really liked this book because Bree was saved the moment the moment she got to Finch.
Mm-hmm.
And him being like, well, you don't have to worry anymore. I got this is just really great. Like, I guess him trying to say that, being like, I can handle this. It's okay. You don't need to be crying. Stop crying. Like, that's his attitude.
Yeah, listen, your mom is, your mom's dead, but,
That's actually how I took it, was like, well, your parents are dead now, so there's nothing to worry about. It's like, what's the worst that can happen?
Not like
at this
she can
point?
get killed twice, kid.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. That's what I'm going for then. You don't have to worry anymore. You don't have to worry anymore. Every time. Why am I?
Finch said in a gruff and matter-of-fact tone. He grabbed the glove compartment and opened it up. Inside, he found his badge and a black Sharpie.
You've got me now, remember?
That's fantastic.
Bree furrowed her brow.
But the man who broke into our house, he was really strong.
Finch glared down at her and frowned.
Your mother said I was a powerful warlock, didn't she? Your mother said I was a powerful warlock, didn't she? Didn't she?
Yes.
That's because I am.
Is that I italicized in the book?
No. But I'm comparing myself to the other powerful warlock,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
I think that's what she says. Yeah, he was really strong. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't she?
Yes.
That's because I am.
Bree slowly turned her gaze to the moldy Burger King wrappers on the back seat, and then to the stained napkins on the floor of the car. With a frown, she glanced back up at Finch.
You're sure?
Finch knelt next to the passenger side seat. Then he uncapped the pen and motioned for Bree's arm. She
Yeah,
hesitantly
that
offered
running
her...
joke that he's somehow a hobo or something like
Yeah,
that.
there are lots of funny.
Yeah, it's one of the
Hobo
greater, or one of the funnier, at least in my opinion, where people just keep commenting like, "Are you sure that you're Adair Finch, that guy, the legendary warlock?"
Oh,
Sorry, keep
this
going.
is great. I think I'm going to jump off here, guys, but
Alrighty.
you're doing great, Jeff.
Okay. Any
And
other
it's good
notes
to meet
before you go?
Shami. I'm saying Shami correctly?
Oh yeah, it's like the car cloth that you would dry a car
Okay.
with.
Nice.
Yeah, it was great meeting you, Annie. I really love the narration and Bree's
Good.
voice. Those are just great. They're so
I'm so glad
fantastic.
you're happy with it. Okay, I can't wait to hear the finished product. See you guys later.
See ya, Annie. Thanks for coming. All right.
She hesitantly offered her right hand. Finch pushed up the sleeve of her coat and hoodie, and then placed the tip of the marker on her skin.
Do you know how warlocks get their magic? Do you know how warlocks get their magic?
He asked as he drew a single straight line across her skin. Bree half nodded.
Papa said he made pacts with spirits, but I didn't learn much. Mum said I was going to become a witch, so I didn't need to use cheap tricks.
Cheap tricks. Every time? Okay. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble pushing the right button today.
Finch snorted as he drew a second straight line next to the first.
Ah, crap. What am I doing, guys? Warlocks. Warlocks get their powers from making pacts with anything magical. Spirits, demons, fae, even old gods. If someone has magic, a warlock can make an agreement to gain access to that creature's abilities. Understand? Understand?
Yes.
Finch drew a third line on her arm.
The stronger the magical creature, the stronger the magic they can gift a warlock.
Bree nodded again.
But don't they ask for more in the pact? Papa said he didn't like spirits who were too powerful because they asked for too much. Asked for too much.
With a steady hand, Finch drew a fourth line through the other three, creating a mark that resembled a line of lowercase t's.
That's true, but don't worry about that bit. All you need to know is that I made a pact with something very powerful.
What?
Bree's eyes grew wide and her fear waned. Finch pointed to the mark he had drawn on her arm.
Do you recognize this?
She shook her head.
Oops. This is the Mark of Kronos, and now that I've drawn this on you, my magic will work twice as well.
Finch stood and slid the pin into his coat pocket.
If your mother's killer is foolish enough to show himself while I'm around, he's a dead man.
Bree grazed her fingers over the mark.
Who is Kronos?
A powerful manipulator of time.
Finch stated.
What if...
Bree glanced up, her hands shaky.
What if the intruder is a warlock who also made a pact with Kronos? What will we do then?
Finch chuckled at that question. It was a logical thought, but she didn't have to worry.
Kronos has only ever made pacts with 2 warlocks. Me and my brother.
The information settled over Bree. She took a deep breath and then relaxed a bit into the seat of the car. Finch held out his hand, and she stared at it.
Come on.
He said.
You really think everything will turn out okay?
She whispered.
If you're with me, nothing bad will happen.
Whispered.
If you're with me, nothing bad will happen.
Bree lit up as she grabbed his hand and leapt out of the vehicle. She jumped to his side and remained quiet, the stripe on her coat glittering, even in the fog, like a magical safety device. Determined to see the scene of the crime, Finch headed toward the police tape around the driveway of Vera's home.
All right, that's the end of Chapter 2. We're starting
Excellent.
to blaze through. Any other notes before we move on to Chapter 3?
No, I really, really like it. I thought it was super great. I'm looking forward to hearing the finished product in all seriousness. It's great. It's almost like how I had imagined it in my head.
Excellent.
Yep.
That's our job. Okay, so we're gonna jump ahead a little bit in Chapter 3, get to the dialogue bits here.
Her mother had... Finch entered through the front door. Bree slowed her pace, her face pale. Her mother had died in this house, and supposedly Bree had seen it all. Surely she didn't want to wander back into the scene of the crime.
You can wait here. Don't move. Don't move, little girl. Okay, so I imagine there's a bit of investigating of the scene, but let's move a little bit forward. Let's see if we get... And you can fill me in on any context needed for any of the line deliveries.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, you're right. That is exactly what happens. He walks around the house. He looks at some stuff. There's like active blood stains and stuff like that. And then he rolls across the detective on the scene.
Gotcha.
Detective Jenner...
All right.
Rhett Jenner. He had been a low-level detective back when Finch still actively worked with the police. Detective Jenner glared, took a deep breath, no doubt preparing for a tirade. But then his eyes went wide.
You?
He asked, clearly dumbfounded.
In the flesh. In the flesh.
Clearly dumbfounded.
In the flesh. There we go. That's a little better. No, that was a little too sing-songy earlier. Okay.
Finch quipped. The other officers glanced up from their work. It was unusual for random people to stumble into a crime scene. They regarded Finch with suspicious glances and then turned their attention to Jenner, obviously waiting for his command. Detective Jenner's face reddened slightly. He rubbed his jaw, his eyes narrowing.
You're Adair Finch, one of the special detectives.
I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit.
Clear out!
he commanded.
Take 15 and then come back and finish what you're doing as soon as possible. We don't need your magic.
He growled under his breath.
Me and my boys are capable of solving this without mumbo-jumbo. Without mumbo-jumbo.
Whew.
Finch.
Whew.
Jumbo.
Whew.
Finch huffed as he ambled around the butcher block. There were a few on the police force who hated,
I thought you had retired.
Jenner stated.
Last I heard, you were rotting away in an apartment somewhere, waiting for the sweet embrace of dementia.
I'm only 37.
Embrace of dementia.
I'm only 37. I'm only 37.
Huh. Huh. Is that so? You might want to see a doctor.
Who's the homicide sergeant overseeing this?
Finch asked.
Sergeant McGregor is outside. I'm the lead detective. You can direct all your questions to me.
How did Vera die? How did Vera die?
You knew the victim personally.
Jenner pulled out his phone and tapped away at the screen.
I wasn't aware of that.
Witch's brews, all unlabeled. But no evidence they had been opened any time recently.
Was any magic used at all?
Finch crossed his arms as he glanced around the kitchen for the fourth time. She wouldn't have the ability to use magic then. Jenner scoffed.
Ah, listen. This isn't the kind of case that requires your skill. As far as we can tell, no magic was used. Victim died of 5 puncture wounds to the chest. The knife was recovered from the floor. Husband disappeared afterward, along with their preteen daughter and his vehicle. I've seen this all before.
You have?
Or
You have?
Finch asked, dry and almost sarcastic.
of course. It's always the spouse.
Detective Jenner tucked his phone away in his coat.
The neighbor to the north overheard the victim and her husband arguing an hour before the time of death. Before you showed up, claiming to know the victim, there were no other leads or hints to anyone else other than the husband.
Arguing? Bree hadn't mentioned that part of the story. Finch faced the detective with a sneer.
Wait. Now, I'm a suspect? Is that it?
All you kooky Harry Potter wannabes get yourselves into trouble with each other all the time. I wouldn't be surprised if you turned up here just to hide your tracks.
And you have no idea where Vera's husband went?
Finch asked. The detective shook his head.
Since the man wasn't very social, we haven't had many leads. Plus, we're concerned someone might be hiding him. And since he is also a weird magic-wielding degenerate, he's probably in an invisible basement far from our grasp.
Huh. Then you might need my skills after all, right?
Jenner turned to Finch with a hard-set expression that bordered on a challenge. After a long stare, Finch half smiled.
How about you point me in a direction so I can help you find the invisible basement Liam is hiding in?
Smiled.
How about you point me in a direction so I can help you find the invisible basement Liam is hiding in? That's my job, after all.
Finch flashed his badge. Jenner exhaled. His expression never softened, though. He was tense. He had been the entire time. Jenner never showed even a slight hint of relaxing. Jenner tucked his hands into his coat pockets.
The victim's husband, Liam Blackstone, is some college professor, despite the fact he's another weirdo with a pointed hat, just like his wife. He works at the University of the Pacific. Other than heading to the campus, the neighbors say he doesn't get out much. Apparently, he was seen burying a couple cats in the backyard a few weeks ago.
And that's why you're certain he's the killer.
Finch asked, lifting an eyebrow.
The man has more red flags than the Beijing Olympics. Who else would it be?
Kat's no longer satisfied.
I love Jenner.
Then again, Liam could just be a man lacking empathy, whose lust for blood had finally hit a dangerous tipping point. Kat's no longer satisfied him. Finch didn't really know Liam, not like he had known Vera.
Thanks.
Finch muttered. He walked around the butcher block and headed for the hallway.
If I find anything, I'll let you know.
Hallway.
If I find anything, I'll let you know.
Locating the victim's daughter is our #1 priority.
Jenner stated.
If you see her, or even discover a hint she's alive and well, you tell us immediately. You understand?
Sure, I'll do that.
Priority. If you see her, you understand?
Sure, I'll do that.
This isn't a game. If you're still a master at solving crimes, you'll focus all your efforts on the victim's daughter.
Jenner thrust the card toward Finch.
She's 12, shoulder-length brown hair, on the smaller side. She answers to Bree. Got all that? She may be in serious danger, and I'll be damned if a kid dies on my case.
Finch tucked the card away.
If I find her, I'll call. If I find her, I'll call.
Then he headed down the hall, turned toward the front door, and spotted Bree leaning against the door handle.
Just want to tighten that up a little bit.
Victim's daughter.
Jenner thrust. She glanced up as Finch approached, her eyebrows knitted.
Did you figure out who did it?
Bree whispered.
You didn't tell me your parents were having an argument.
Finch said, ignoring her question. He opened the door and stepped outside.
I didn't think it was important.
Bree leapt to his side and matched his pace. She kept her arms crossed and her gaze on the ground.
They were just arguing about Papa's work. It wasn't anything.
As they left the driveway and headed for the neighbor's house, Finch huffed.
You're certain there was a strange man in your house? Are you sure it wasn't your father in the dark, and you just didn't recognize him? Recognize him.
There was someone else,
Bree said, no hesitation in her voice.
He was waiting in the kitchen. Mom and Papa were back in their room. I'm super certain.
What if Bree had seen her father, but the trauma of the event made her think it had to be someone else entirely? It was possible. Stranger things had happened.
Did the stranger try to attack you?
Finch asked. Bree frowned.
The man attacked Mom and then Papa. I ran away after her. I think the man chased me, but once I was outside, he didn't follow.
Bree stood close, her brow furrowing. One of the ravens stared down at Finch with unnatural red eyes. When Finch met the creature's gaze, he stopped and tensed. Bree stood close, her brow furrowing the moment she caught sight of the strange beast. "What's that?" she whispered.
A corpse spider.
Finch replied.
A shady spirit drawn to dead bodies. Finch replied. Okay, let's get rid of that. A corpse spider. Corpse spider. A shady spirit drawn to dead bodies. All right, and that's another chapter.
Yeah, you are knocking these out pretty quickly.
Getting through them quick. All right, so anything else? Anything about the previous scenes? Anything that I should know going forward?
You mean just in terms of context of the story?
Yeah, if you think any of that's going to help me with the specific performance, or anything from the last scenes that you think could do with a retake, anything like that.
No, I liked most of the takes you eventually settled on. Jenner was fun. Who is voicing him? I think you
That's
mentioned it.
Justin. Yeah, Justin.
Oh,
Thomas
okay,
Jones.
Justin. Yeah. I liked writing Jenner, so it was funny to hear his silly, mocking of Harry Potter wannabes, in the dialogue. So that was great. Great times. He sounds appropriately menacing, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's
Menacing
good.
and insecure at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Justin did great there. Okay. Do you have a minute to spare, Spirit?
Finch asked.
Keeping his volume low. Do you have a minute to spare, Spirit? Do you have a minute to spare, Spirit?
What do you want, Warlock? Do you wish to make a pact?
Its voice was raspy and quiet, almost lost between the noises made by the many corvids all around.
No. No. I want to know if you've seen anything.
Anything? I've seen so many things.
The corpse biter tilted its head to the other side.
A witch died here last night.
The corpse biter fluffed its black feathers and cawed another laugh, this one crueler than before.
I know. I smelled it.
Bree clenched her hands tightly into fists. She said nothing, but she grew stiffer with each passing moment.
Did you see who killed her? Killed her. Killed her.
I did not.
The corpse biter smoothed its black feathers.
I arrived after she died. I came for her garden, but I had hoped to see her body. The humans took it away before I could feast.
You came for her garden?
Oh, yes.
The ravens around the corpse biter cawed with enthusiasm.
Her garden is filled with bodies. So many delicious bodies.
All the color drained from Bree's face.
Human bodies?
Finch asked. Corpse biters didn't care where they found undead flesh. They just wanted something rotten and decayed. The body of a human was just as good as the body of a crusty fish.
No, only cats. Disgusting, vile cats.
Again, the ravens cawed.
Okay.
Therefore, he wanted to know more.
How many cats are buried? How many cats are buried in the garden? 2? 3? How many cats are buried in the garden? 2, 3? Oops. 3?
60.
60?
Finch balked. Finch balked.
6, 0? Zero?
Yes, Warlock. That's what I said.
Do you know why your father would kill cats?
Finch asked as he turned his attention to Bree. She fidgeted with the long sleeves of her coat.
Papa didn't kill cats. There's no way. He's really kind and nice. You have to believe me. Why didn't you make a pact with that spirit? She asked. Don't warlocks want to make pacts with as many things as they can? Then you'll have more magic.
Firstly, when I make a pact, I have to do something for the spirit. Either give them something I own, which can include things like body parts, or do something they ask of me, which is usually tedious or sinister. Nobody has time for that shit. I think I can do that one better.
Then you'll have more magic.
Firstly, when I make a pact, I have to do something for the spirit. Either give them something I own, which can include things like body parts, or do something they ask of me, which is usually tedious or sinister. Nobody has time for that shit. There we go.
Yeah, that was better. That was great.
Finch hesitated after the last word. He glanced over at Bree. Her eyes had gone wide.
Pretend you didn't hear that.
She stared at him with a sardonic glower.
I've been on the internet longer than 30 minutes. I've been exposed to worse things than the word shit.
Damn these... Damn kids these days. Whatever. Damn kids these days. Whatever.
Finch shook his head. He went straight for the front door. Gnomes were stationed all along the grass under every windowsill. If he had to guess, he would say the place was owned by someone well above their 70s. When they reached the door, he stopped and said,
Secondly, corpse biters don't have many useful magical abilities. Perhaps if I wanted to eat decaying flesh, I'd make a pact then. But unless I'm stuck in a ditch surrounded by gangrenous bodies, I doubt I'll need the ability. Try that one again.
Ed.
Secondly, corpse biters don't have many useful magical abilities. Perhaps if I wanted to eat decaying flesh, I'd make a pact then. Fuck. Perhaps if I wanted to eat decaying flesh, I'd make a pact then. But unless I'm stuck in a ditch surrounded by gangrenous bodies, I doubt I'll need that ability.
You know what abilities a corpse biter can offer?
Of course.
Offer?
Of course. I've been a warlock for decades. And corpse biters are quite common. And corpse biters are quite common.
That's so cool.
Bree crossed her arms and half shrugged.
Papa didn't talk to me much about spirits and demons and things. I think it was because Mom told him not to.
Witches have their own innate magic. You'll develop your own abilities.
I know. I just think it's awesome to make deals with creatures and get all sorts of interesting powers.
Finch held up his hand.
Enough of this. I need to question your neighbor. Don't talk unless I address you. Got it?
Bree glanced at the door and then back to Finch. With a frown, she said,
This is Miss Baker's house. She doesn't like it when anyone visits.
This'll be quick. This will be quick, and then we're going to head to your father's work. All right, moving on down. Miss Baker coming up.
The lady wore a floral dress, and her glasses were secured around her neck with a silver chain. She wasn't the type to vacuum up a bunch of drugs with a single inhale. "Who are you?" the woman asked. Her gray hair was tied tightly behind her head in a neat bun, and she smoothed it as she creaked open the door a bit.
Oops.
Opened the door a bit further.
I'm with the Stockton PD. Are you Miss Baker?
I've already given my formal statement. Thank you very much. I'm not in the mood for any more questions.
This will only take a moment.
Finch wasn't a master of charisma. All he wanted was a few minutes of this woman's time, but most people found parting with their precious minutes too much of an ordeal.
I just want to ask you about last night.
Miss Baker frowned.
This is just a waste of my time. How unprofessional. If you knew what you were doing, you'd read the report the previous detective wrote.
Ma'am, trust me. This is important. Do I look like a man who would waste your time? Oh my God, this is an amazing line.
The old woman gave Finch the once-over.
You look like a man who's legally required to introduce himself to his neighbors.
That's so good.
Like I said, there's like a running joke throughout the entire book that he looks just not professional at all.
Finch dragged a hand down his face as he exhaled.
Self to his neighbors. Self to his neighbors.
Finch dragged
Oh, wait, no. Come on.
Self to his neighbors.
Finch dragged a hand down
Self to his neighbors.
Finch dragged a hand down his face as he exhaled. He felt like hot garbage. His clothes were wrinkled, and he wanted nothing more than to sleep for 3 more hours. But he didn't have the luxury of rest until he was done with this. Why was a little old lady one of his obstacles? Why?
Miss Baker, please help him, Bree said.
She stepped forward.
He's trying to catch Mum's killer. And remember how Mum helped you with all that gardening and... Mum? And Mum?
I think we can get a bark out of her here.
And Mum? Miss Baker barked. Who's Mum? Who are you? I've never met you before in my life.
Finch grabbed the front of Bree's coat and pulled her away from the front door. He turned slightly to face her and hissed under his breath.
What did I say about the coat? She doesn't see you. What did I say about the coat? She doesn't see you.
Bree bit her lip.
I'm sorry, I forgot.
Then she straightened her pose and glared.
I'm just trying to help.
Stand right here. I'll handle this.
Finch whirled on his heel.
Sorry about that, Miss Baker. We're just passionate about the law. It would be helpful if you could tell me about your neighbors. Did you hear them arguing? I gotta hear that.
On his heel.
Sorry about that, Miss Baker. We're just passionate about the law. It would be helpful if you could tell me about your neighbors. Did you hear them arguing?
Last night?
The elderly woman rubbed her hip.
Oh, yes. I couldn't sleep. The weather wakes me. It's been getting cold.
Uh-huh. If you heard them, can you tell me what their argument was about?
Typically, if someone killed their spouse, it was one of 3 reasons: money, sex, or child custody. If Liam and Vera had been arguing about one of those 3 things last night, Finch would close the investigation and declare Vera's husband the killer. They were arguing about necklaces. Vera yelled something about how they had too many. Her husband, a quiet man, those are always the weirdos, shouted something about needing to make them.
Right. Anything else?
No, just necklaces.
What about them? Any other details would be appreciated. What about them? Any other details would be appreciated.
Just that Liam was making too many. Didn't you hear me? Didn't you hear me?
One last question. Did you ever see Liam burying? Did you ever see Liam burying things in the garden? Animals, perhaps?
Lately, he was in the garden all the time at night, burying things. I told him it was suspicious to do it in the dark, but he just chuckled. I never liked him much.
Thanks for your time.
Liked him much.
Thanks for your time.
Liam.
I'm sorry,
Bree said.
but I really do want to help.
Who's the professional? You or me?
But I really do want to help.
Who's the professional? You or me? Let's try this again. Less condescending, more matter of fact. Let's keep moving.
But I really do want to help.
Who's the professional? You or me?
I'm a witch, and it's my mom. I figured I could help. And Papa didn't kill any cats. I don't care what Miss Baker or the corpse spider said. He's really nice, and he wouldn't do that.
Finch gave her a sidelong glance.
Remember how I said some spirits or demons can require bizarre tasks for their pacts? It might be that your father is fulfilling some creature's requirement.
Really?
Bree crossed her arms.
You think so?
I'm not sure. I don't have enough information yet.
Can we figure it out? Figure it out?
If I can talk to whatever he made a pact with. But he might just be insane, for all we know. Let me do that under his breath.
Figure it out? Figure it out?
If I can talk to whatever he made a pact with. But he might just be insane, for all we know. For all we know.
He's not insane. We can just rule that out.
Finch opened the Toyota's passenger door.
Let's focus on finding your father. We'll figure it out. Let's focus on finding your father. We'll figure out the motives for everything later.
You believe me, right? That Papa is kind and gentle and he wouldn't hurt anyone? He definitely didn't hurt Mom.
I believe that's what you think of him.
He definitely didn't hurt Mom.
I believe that's what you think of him.
Finch stated.
I think we can get rid of that. Let that think of him sink.
Bree glanced down at the dashboard.
Good. All right. Chapter done. Cruising on through. What time is
Yeah,
it?
you really are knocking them out just super quick.
1:45. All right. And we'll go ahead and just start from the top here. while I make some space.
The sun burned away the last of the mist. Driving across Stockton wasn't as bad once the daylight had chased away the gloom. It was long, though. Friday mornings were the worst for traffic. 7:32 a.m. Finch kept his eye on the GPS screen mounted to his car dashboard. He made mental notes about the timeline and everything he knew so far. From what he had gathered, the murder was rather straightforward. Firstly, Liam had been killing cats. Too many cats. Even if he was harvesting them for witch's brew, it was too much. One cat would make a year's worth of potions and tonics. Why would anyone need to kill 60? Was it to appease his sick sense of pleasure? Or was it something to do with his magic? Either way, it was a bizarre facet that Finch needed to consider. Secondly, Liam and Vera had argued about necklaces the night of her death, loudly enough that one of the neighbors heard. Thirdly, Vera had been stabbed to death, either quickly or by surprise, too fast for her to use her magic in response. Lastly, Liam had disappeared shortly afterward. As Finch navigated the roads to the University of the Pacific, he contemplated heading back to Vera's house. If Liam was making necklaces, surely there would be a few around. Perhaps they would give him some insight into their argument.
But if I find Liam, I can just ask him myself.
Papa surprised me and Mum on Valentine's Day last year. He took us to the ice skating rink.
Bree crossed her arms over her chest.
And he said we were the two most important girls in his life.
Great.
Finch drawled.
And for summer solstice, we all went camping, and Papa made a pact with a woodland spirit so he could talk to the animals. He showed me all the wildlife around the lake. We petted these bunnies, and also some gophers, and all the birds, all day long.
Vera didn't have a coven? Vera didn't have a coven? Absent-mindedly, he says. Absently or absent? Absent-mindedly, yeah.
Mum was a waning crescent witch. That means that... Mum was a waning crescent witch. That means that...
She did all her magic on her own. On her own.
Fully aware of all the types of witches, though he had forgotten Vera's specific type.
Just leave it. Her own.
Finch stated, fully aware of all the types of witches.
Also, Papa surprised us one night by making cookies. He, let me help make the frosting. And...
Bree rubbed at her face, her eyes growing watery.
And Mum kept pretending she couldn't spread the frosting right, so Papa would come over and help, just so she could kiss him.
She rubbed her face harder than before.
How about we listen to the radio?
It's harder than before.
How about we listen to the radio? I want to hear more. I want to hear more out of that.
Harder than before.
How about we listen to the radio? There we go. That's nice and avoidant.
And
Exactly.
Mum kept pretending she couldn't spread the frosting right, so Papa would come over and help, just so she could kiss him.
She rubbed her face harder than before.
How about we listen to the radio?
Finch reached over to turn on music, but Bree shot her hand out and stopped him.
No!
I just love how it's so fucking insensitive.
And again, that's like the character arc, is he's like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to be talking to no kid. Why is she bringing up all these memories? I don't want to deal with this.
Oh God, she's crying again.
Yeah, we need to turn on the radio. Yeah.
No,
It makes
I have
his
to...
transformation all that more sweeter, at the end
Yeah,
when
yeah.
he's actually cool with her. So
Yeah. I'm so enjoying this.
No, I have to tell you all this.
She said, defiant.
Why? To prove your father's a good guy?
Bree nodded.
That doesn't mean he's not a murderer.
I just think you should look for the real killer and not even consider Papa. He didn't do it.
Are you convincing me, or trying to convince yourself?
He didn't do it.
Are you convincing me, or trying to convince yourself?
Finch glanced over. Bree glared back at him.
All right, they've gotten to their new destination.
This is Papa's spot.
Bree whispered.
If we're lucky, he'll come out to tell us to move.
Yeah, it was this parking spot in the at the University of the Pacific.
That's so good.
Finch quipped as he killed the engine and stepped out of the car.
Come on, let's speak with some of your father's co-workers about his last known activities.
Car.
Come on, let's speak with some of your father's co-workers about his last known activities.
Oh, okay.
Okay, they hopped out. Speak to a few of the magic workers. Okay.
Where are we going?
Bree whispered.
Something is nearby.
Finch pointed to the spot between the trees. A small hole, something a normal person would mistake for a gopher dwelling, was near the trunk of the largest tree.
There. There.
Is it a spirit?
They stopped walking once they reached the cluster of trees. Finch held out his hand, stopping Bree from getting any closer. Then Finch glanced around. It was still too early. Not many students were wandering the campus.
It's not a spirit.
Finch muttered. He returned his attention to the hole.
It's one of the Fey folk. A dwarf.
Fey folk?
That's right. Warlocks have classifications for all types of magical entities. The rule of thumb is, if the creature can sometimes pass as a person, it's probably Fey folk. Elves, dwarves. You get the picture. Dwarves. You get the picture.
Bree nodded along with his words, her eyes wide.
Papa made a pact with a dwarf.
Then there's a good chance this is the dwarf who knows your father.
Can I question the dwarf? She asked.
Do I have to keep reminding you who the professional is?
Bree lifted one knee close to her chest.
I really want to help, and this is Papa's creature he made a pact with, right? I really pact with, right? I want to know more about it. Maybe since I'm magical and it's magical, it wouldn't mind talking to me.
Fine.
Finch said with a groan. Bree's expression lit up, a smile appearing instantly.
Really?
Go on.
On.
Really?
Go on.
Finch motioned to the hole.
If I need to, I'll take over.
Giddy, Bree leaned in close to the hole. She yelled, "Hello?" at a volume even the deaf could hear. Finch grabbed the shoulder of her coat and yanked her away from the opening.
Keep your voice down. What the hell are you doing?
What else should I do?
Bree whispered. She pulled her coat from his grip and bunched her shoulders at the base of her neck.
You don't have to yell. If you just told me what to do, I'd do it, okay? I've never interacted with spirits and stuff.
Listen.
He muttered.
The Fae are prim. The Fae are prim and proper. You have to knock at the entrance to their dwellings, or else they'll ignore you.
Knock? Bree rubbed at her shoulder. With a frown, she turned her gaze to the dirt. After a long sigh, Finch motioned to the trunk of the tree.
Knock here, then say hello.
Before Bree did anything, Finch held up a hand.
Another rule of thumb. The Fae love etiquette and formality. They have courts and rules of social engagement and all sorts of irritating nonsense. Got it?
Bree nodded once.
Wow, really?
Once.
Wow, really? That's so cool.
She glanced at the tree.
Okay. I should say hello?
Finch glanced at the clock on his phone. 7:43 a.m.
And use your full name.
He said as he tucked his phone away.
The Fae trust people who use their full name more than someone who doesn't introduce themselves. Oops. Come on now. There we go.
Bree's smile returned.
You really know a lot. Okay, I'll do that.
She knocked on the side of the tree and then scooted closer to the hole.
Hello? My name is Bree Blackstone, and this is Adair Finch.
Hot air rushed up from the depths. It smelled of sulfur and copper. Dwarves didn't like the light. Finch knew the creature wouldn't venture to the surface, not while the sun hung in the sky.
Salutations.
A rusty voice echoed up from the depths of the hold.
Long has it been since I had new visitors come to call.
Can we speak to you for a moment?
Bree asked.
About your warlock, Liam Blackstone?
Finch rolled his eyes. She just assumed this was the right dwarf, rather than asking for confirmation first. It didn't matter too much, but Finch made a mental note to correct her line of questioning if this ever happened again. A deep chuckle wafted up to the surface.
Liam is a private man. So am I.
He might be in trouble. He might be in trouble.
Finch interjected.
You wouldn't want to lose your pact with him, would you? He might be in trouble. You wouldn't want to lose your pact with him, would you?
No creature wanted to lose their warlock.
I'm his daughter,
Bree said.
and everything Mr. Finch said is true. My papa is in trouble. Can you help us?
Another blast of hot air shot from the hole. The dwarf groaned and shifted underground. The nearby trees shuddered.
You smell of his blood. You are his offspring. But the warlock with you is quite powerful. You don't need my assistance when you have his.
Bree glanced over at Finch.
The dwarves know about you?
She whispered.
My brother and I were well known.
Finch shrugged.
That was a long time ago.
I just need to know a few things, Bree said into the hole. Please, Mr. Dwarf. It'll only be a moment.
After another rush of hot air, the dwarf replied.
Fine. Ask me your questions. What do you need to know?
Do you think Papa is a good man? Kind and trustworthy, I mean?
The dwarf scoffed. Soot and smoke puffed out of the hole.
The morals of dwarves and mankind do not mix. I know little of Liam. I cannot judge him.
Does Liam have a pact with a creature to kill cats?
Out of the hole.
The morals of dwarves and mankind do not mix, Jim.
Does Liam have a pact with a creature to kill cats?
No. None of his current pacts require the blood of felines.
What was your agreement with Liam?
He would provide me with various types of metal. In exchange, I would make it easier for him to craft things. His hands can mold metal like clay. His magics can become permanently affixed to objects. He can sense the purpose of crafted magical items and use them without instruction.
And you only required metals?
Yes, Warlock. Metals. I need materials for my forge. Once I've finished my masterpiece, I'll be remembered forever in both song and stone.
The dwarf's rusty voice was accompanied by another round of hot air. "Do you know where Papa is right now?" Bree asked. She scooted closer to the hole.
We're trying to find him.
I don't. Every fortnight, Liam would leave 2 pounds of metals by the tree, and I would fetch them once the moon rose. We didn't interact.
Finch stood with a groan.
Thanks, dwarf. We'll look elsewhere.
Bree stood as well, her attention on the hole.
Thank you so much.
The dwarf replied with,
I will speak well wishes to the fire of the forge until his safe return. Farewell.
Then Bree glanced over at Finch. She frowned and crossed her arms.
You really think it's Papa now, don't you?
Listen, kid. Listen, kid.
Finch tucked his hands into the pockets of his coat.
Sometimes life is complicated. Sometimes life is complicated. Maybe it would be best if you stayed with Detective Jenner. He can get you in touch with some of your relatives while the police wrap things up. Sometimes life is complicated. Maybe it would be best if you stayed with Detective Jenner. He can get you in touch with some of your relatives while the police wrap things up.
Was Finch even required for this murder? Would his magic even help with solving such a straightforward case? Perhaps it was best if Bree just had time to grieve and come to terms with reality.
I have Jenner's cell phone number. I can call him after this. After this.
A thin man, half broomstick, half coat rack, stepped out of the Nissan. His outfit matched his oak-colored hair, at least. When Finch neared, the man grimaced and leaned against his little car.
Hello?
The man asked.
Is this, your vehicle?
He pointed to the Toyota.
That's a reserved parking spot. I'll have to call it.
Bree hurried up next to Finch and stared with wide eyes.
Dr. Colton?
She asked.
Bree?
Dr. Colton asked, his eyes going equally wide.
What are you doing here? And with this strange homeless man?
Wide.
What are you doing here? And with this strange homeless man?
I'm here to question Liam Blackstone's co-workers. I'm a PI working with the Stockton PD.
He flashed his badge, but not long enough to actually convey much information, just long enough to seem official.
I need just a few moments of your time.
Dr. Colton fumbled for a moment, patting at the pockets of his slacks. He quickly withdrew his cell phone and tapped away at the screen.
Right.
What are you doing?
Oh, texting my assistant. I need to tell them I'll be late. It's almost the start of my first class.
Uh-huh.
First class.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Let's call for some sound effects here.
Texting sound effects.
Yeah. No. Stupid buttons.
Finch didn't believe him at all. Dr. Colton sweated like a sinner in church. The man tapped at the phone screen with shaky and unsteady pokes, hesitation present through all of his body motions.
Are you aware that Liam's wife, Vera, was murdered last night? Crap. Night. Can I get rid of that? Last night. There we go.
Finch asked. He kept his hands in his pockets, trying to be calm enough for the two of them.
What? Oh my goodness.
Dr. Colton shoved his phone into his slacks and shook his head. And then he shook it again.
I had no idea. That's awful.
He glanced at Bree.
And you're here? With him?
He's helping me.
Him?
He's helping me,
Bree stated.
he was Mum's friend.
She stepped closer to Finch.
But how can you see me? I thought...
You're right here, in an almost empty parking lot.
Dr. Colton pulled his phone out a second time and tapped it again.
Th- This isn't the time for childish games. I just didn't expect you to be out and about with a detective. Why aren't you in police custody? Safe at the police station?
When was the last time you saw Liam Blackstone?
Finch asked, ignoring Dr. Colton's attempts to speak to Bree.
Last night, in the labs. He was working late on some personal project. Are you sure you don't want me to take you somewhere safe, Bree? It seems odd that you're out here with this man, even if he's a great detective.
I saw someone murder Mum.
Bree.
Dr. Colton, you have to tell us about how Papa was hardworking and kind and how he wouldn't do anything to harm anyone.
You saw someone kill your mom?
That's right,
Bree said.
I did. Last night. Please, Dr. Colton, we have to find him.
I think we should go inside. We can talk more inside. Quickly.
Finch sighed. Right as he was about to turn to head in.
Okay. Oops. Next chapter coming up.
Right as he was about to turn to head inside, a loud crack rang out across the parking lot. Blood splattered across the Nissan. Dr. Colton hit the side of the vehicle and stumbled to the asphalt, a hole in the side of his chest, his brown outfit quickly soaking in crimson. Another crack, and Finch understood what was happening. Someone was shooting at them, somewhere far off. Only rifles made that harsh kind of bang that sounded like something cracking in half. Bree didn't even have time to cry out. She fell forward, shot in the back, and hit the ground hard. A third shot was coming, but Finch didn't give the shooter a chance. Finch manipulated time itself. Everything froze. The leaves in the trees, the cars on the distant road, even the wind. Then the color drained from the world, turning it into a black and white movie devoid of all vibrancy. The shadows were pitch black, and the sky a pool of pristine white. One by one, all the nearby objects melted away, unraveled by Kronos' powerful and disturbing time magic. The university disappeared, the cars disappeared, even the people, Bree and Dr. Colton, until there was nothing left but an empty, white void. Finch's body jerked. He blinked his eyes. And then he was back in his bed, dressed in his ratty pajamas, flailing around in the sheets. He sat up, his heart hammering. His phone displayed the time. 4:34 a.m.
All right. So that's the end of that chapter. Is this the first time we witness him using his time magic?
Yeah. The end of chapter 5 when Bree gets shot. Well, Bree and Dr. Colton get shot by a mysterious shooter. He rewinds time to the very beginning of the day. So this is the first time Bree sees it. This is the first time the reader sees it. It's really the end of Act 1, like in terms of storytelling stuff. Because now Finch understands that whatever is happening has got to be way worse than what he thought it was.
Right.
Because he was like, oh, the father murdered the wife. I don't need to be involved. This is silly. We're going nowhere with this. But, clearly if somebody's out to kill Bree, that something much bigger is happening. And
Yes.
Liam probably isn't using a sniper rifle, that kind of.
Probably not. Yes.
Yeah.
Right on. Okay, so we're on to the next chapter, chapter 6, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And everybody, thank you so much for coming. We have 125 people watching us right now, which is awesome.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks so much for all your support, and please feel free to be as chatty as you want in the chat there. Shami, are you able to see the comments?
No, I'm just watching through SteamYard. I mean, I could go to YouTube.
Yeah, if you look at the top right of StreamYard, there's a comments button.
Oh, yeah, okay, there they all are. Woo.
There you go. So, are you able to click on any of them and bring them up on the screen? I'm curious if you have that.
I don't think I have that. It says join the chat. It wants me to connect with something, so I can't bring them up.
Okay, just curious. I know that sometimes I can do that, but like.
Oh, do you want me to read some of the comments?
Oh no, it's just up to you. If you wanted to like highlight any, all you have to do is click on them, and they pop up on the screen there.
No, I don't have that ability.
Okay. But yeah, thank you guys so much for coming. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you like, watching stuff like this where we're doing making of audiobook things. If you have enjoyed the book so far, you might want to check out more of Shami's work. I've put a link in the description. The first audiobook I'm trying to remember the name of that series that I linked to. It's the one that seems like it gets the most attention on Audible. Let's see. I gotta find there we go. The Frith Chronicles.
Oh, yeah. The Nightmare Arcanist and the Frith Chronicles, yeah.
So there is a link to that on Audible down there. And there's also more at the bottom, a Discord link for if you want to join for when I'm... this is the only cold read I'm going to do for this book, but I will be doing the voices in Discord in my booth. So if you want to join our Discord and catch more of this live voice acting stuff, you can do that. So yeah, check all the links in the description if you want any other references. Also, you can join our Facebook group that way.
Excellent. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's see. We're at chapter 6. I got 45 more minutes. Shami, of course, you're welcome to stay and you're welcome to leave, whatever you want to do. Happy to have you, though. So let's move on. Okay, so let's hear what's happening, like how things pan out after a time travel happens.
Finch leapt out of his bed and stumbled through his dark apartment. He went straight for the front door, unlocked it, and then threw it open. Bree stood out in the dimly lit hallway, her eyes wide, her body shaking. Bree wore the clothing Finch had met her in, a black hoodie, jeans. His oversized coat with the rainbow stripe was nowhere to be seen, because it was back in a pile in the middle of Finch's living room. With her eyes still wide, Bree turned to face him.
"I was shot," she whispered. "There was so much blood."
Finch grabbed her arm and pulled her inside. Bree didn't put up a fight. She muttered disbelieving statements as Finch switched on the light and immediately went for his bread box. Inside, he found a single package of midnight raspberry tea, the last one in his possession, for a second time. He grabbed a mug, snapped his finger, heating the water, and dipped the bag into the boiling liquid.
"You're fine,"
Finch said as he waited for the calming brew to finish.
"Everything is fine. This is fine."
Bree shivered. Then she rubbed at her arms, silent tears running down her face.
Dr. Colton, he was shot too.
Once the tea was ready, Finch led Bree into the living room. He shoved the clothes off his spare chair, a metal something hitting the floor with a loud clunk. And then Finch sat Bree down and handed her the drink.
Drink this, and don't worry about any of that. It didn't actually happen.
Bree trembled as she brought the mug to her lips. Finch feared she would spill the drink all over her hoodie, but she sipped the liquid just fine. After a few gulps, Bree managed to control her shaking. She glanced around until her gaze finally settled on the clock hung on the far wall.
It's in the morning?
She whispered. Finch took a seat in his favorite recliner. He ran a hand down his face and nodded.
Yes, exactly. Everything is great, and we're back in my apartment, far from everyone else.
The clock ticked loud enough to fill the living room with white noise. Bree sipped more of her tea, her nerves clearly calming. She swirled her drink around in her mug before finally turning her gaze fully to Finch.
You can rewind time?
That's right.
Time?
That's right. He's like, skip cutscene, skip cutscene, skip cutscene.
There's a great chapter near the end when he has to fight like a demon basically, and he redoes it several times so that he can do it correctly, and that it has that vibe where he's just like, I have to redo this exact conversation. That's great. It's a pretty funny scene, even though it's a fight scene.
You can rewind time?
That's right.
Finch stated. Bree scooted to the edge of her seat.
Well then, rewind time some more. Rewind it until Mum is alive and we can stop the murderer.
She gripped the mug too tightly, her fingers practically bone white.
My ability doesn't work that way.
Finch drawled. He had known he would have to explain this at some point, but he dreaded doing it. Few people understood.
Here's how it works. I mark a specific time. In this case, 4:34. And I can rewind time to that point, and that point only. I can't go any earlier.
Understood.
Here's how it works. I mark a specific time. In this case, 4:34. And I can rewind time to that point, and that point only. I can't go any earlier.
Oh, I get it. It's like a save point in a video game. And you already saved your game beyond the point that Mom died. Now you can't go back.
Somehow,
And let's give her some more space there.
Mom died. Now you can't go.
And a little more. Nope. Come on now.
Mom died. Now you can't go back.
There we go.
maybe
I should start. Maybe I should start. Technically, if I allow time to flow beyond 24 hours after I marked the time, my part... Okay. Start. Technically, if I allow time to flow beyond 24 hours after I marked the time, my marker has to be reset. Reset. So, I can redo a single day as many times as it takes. Reset. So, I can redo a single day as many times as it takes.
Bree snapped her attention to him.
And everyone remembers? Dr. Colton? Miss Baker? They know time went backward?
No one will remember.
Went backward?
No one will remember. To them, this day hasn't happened yet. Hasn't happened yet.
But why can I remember?
Bree glanced down at her mug.
I can even remember the feeling of the bullet.
She rubbed at her chest, her hand shaking. Finch stood from his chair, grabbed a pin from the mess on the kitchen counter, then walked over to Bree. He knelt, gently took her arm, and shoved the sleeve of her hoodie up, exposing her left arm. It was blank.
Do you remember the mark I drew on you? Do you remember the mark I drew on you? Do you remember the mark I drew on you? Ah. My voice is weakening right in that spot. Do you remember the mark I drew on you? There we go.
Finch asked. Bree stared at her pale arm.
It's gone.
I drew the mark of Kronos so you would remember everything that happened after I rewound time. Okay, I hear some noise outside. Let me see if that bled through.
On.
I drew the mark of Kronos so you would remember everything that happened after I rewound time.
He uncapped the pin and drew the 4 lines needed to recreate the mark.
I have to do this every time I manipulate time.
To recreate the mark.
I have to do this every time I manipulate time. Understand? If I forget, even once, you won't remember what happened. For any of the resets, it'll all go away.
Bree swallowed hard. Once Finch had completed the mark, she pushed down her sleeve.
Can I draw the mark? That way I make sure I'll remember?
Only someone with Kronos' magic can do it. So, me or Kronos himself. That's it.
What if you were shot?
Finch shook his head.
Don't worry about that.
He didn't want to tell her the truth. If he died before he could activate his ability, that was it. Finch...
Okay. Move a little bit further.
Not a lot of people could handle that kind of stress, even with the aid of magical calming tea.
I can't bring your mother back,
Finch muttered.
but I can give you all the time you need until you feel strong again. I have a bed. I'll order some food. You don't need to do anything for a bit. All right, kid? Okay, let me hear that again. I can't bring your mother back,
Finch muttered.
but I get rid of that too. Mother back, but I can give you all the time you need until you feel strong again. I have a bed. I'll order some food. You don't need to do anything for a bit. All right, kid? That sounds sufficiently had enough, but sort of sympathetic.
While Finch was preparing the last of the midnight raspberry tea for the 13th time, Bree stood next to him in the kitchen.
You can do this forever?
She whispered.
That's right.
This
He said.
this starts the part of the book where they donk around. You know, obviously 13 days has gone by. He just keeps rewinding time so that she can be depressed, basically.
Right.
But and then this section, or I think the chapter's about to end, or maybe they continue on. I can't remember exactly where I ended it. But he decides to take her to like a mall. Oh, okay, yeah. This is the like, and then he's gonna cheer up a little girl scene, which is great.
Nice.
So sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
It's okay. That's right.
He said. Finch glanced over. The girl leaned against the kitchen counter, her gaze on the dirty floor.
How about we go outside today? How about we go outside today?
I don't feel like it.
Just for a short bit. Trust me. I know it helps to go out.
You like it?
Just for a short bit. Trust me. I know it helps to go out and see new things. I've been in this position more times than I like to admit.
Bree glanced up through her eyelashes.
You have?
My brother was killed. It took a toll on me. Okay. And they drove. He parked.
Why are we here?
She asked as she stepped out into the cold fog of the Friday morning.
Don't teens like the mall?
Finch motioned to the gigantic 2-story building.
Go wander around. Buy whatever the hell you want. I don't give a shit. Go wander around. Buy whatever the hell you want. I don't give a shit.
He said everything with the enthusiasm of a coroner examining a fresh body. Malls were some of his least favorite places on the planet. Bree's eyes widened.
I can buy anything?
That's right.
Anything?
That's right.
When Finch reset time, his bank account would return to whatever it was before. What did it matter what they purchased now? Bree headed for the front door, purpose in her step. The inside was a vast wonderland of shops, a place spare money went to die. Finch followed behind Bree, his hands in the pockets of his pants. Without a word, Bree went straight for a store called Saint Laurent. Finch had never heard of this place, but the moment he walked in, he was greeted by the presence of a million handbags.
Gigi said these are the best bags ever.
Bree said as she walked over to a black one perched all by itself on a pedestal-style stand.
Mom said I couldn't have one until I graduated college.
Who is Gigi?
I graduated college.
Who is Gigi?
Gigi runs a YouTube channel about fashion and makeup.
Bree gently took the bag from the stand and carefully placed the strap on her shoulder.
I've watched her forever. She's my favorite YouTuber of all time.
Uh-huh.
Finch stopped listening the moment he heard the word YouTube.
I love that.
Yeah, this is a fun fun part of the book where he's just trying to cheer up a little girl.
I can have anything here?
Whatever you want.
Bree bit her lip. She held the black handbag close. A store worker sauntered over to Finch. The sales rep wore glitzy jewelry that bordered on gaudy, and her heels were tall enough to be considered skyscrapers. "Excuse me," the woman said, her smile a little too smug. "But we ask that customers not damage any of the products."
We're buying them.
Finch stated. Sir, I don't think you know what kind of store this is. She gave Finch the once-over, a sneer barely contained. "Perhaps you'd find your fashion needs at a local Ross or Kmart?" Finch shot her a glare.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear any of that. I was too busy minding my own damn business.
A glare.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear any of that. I was too busy minding my own damn business. There we go. I'm sorry, I didn't hear any of that. I was too busy minding my own damn business.
The saleswoman placed a hand on the collar of her shirt, her lips twisted down in a pronounced frown. She walked away and immediately whispered things to her co-workers as though this were the worst thing she had ever experienced in her life. After grabbing a thick belt with a prominent silver buckle with the letters YSL on the side, Bree hurried back to Finch.
I can have All this?
How many times do I have to say it?
All this?
How many times do I have to say it?
Finch growled. He walked her up to
Okay, this
Finch
is great.
growled. He walked her up to the counter, and the same prissy woman from before ambled over to help them. Bree removed the coat and bag and handed them over. The woman, eyeing Finch the whole time, scanned the bag. $4,900. Then the woman scanned the coat. $4,990. Once Bree handed over the belt, the woman scanned that as well. $645.
Wow. Something under 1,000. Let's try that again. Wow. Something under 1,000. There we go. Oops. Under 1,000. Whew. Whew.
Finch huffed to himself.
Back when I was a kid, everyone wanted the latest baggy pants. How much did they cost? Like $90? What the hell is wrong with kids these days? Hear that again. Back when I was a kid, everyone wanted the latest baggy pants. How much did they cost? Like $90? What the hell is wrong with kids these days?
Finch handed the woman his credit card.
All right. Oh.
She tapped it to her screen, her eyebrows raised. When everything was approved, she gave Finch a sideways glance, even going so far as to give him a second once-over. He tucked the card away and then turned on his heel.
And this is supposed to be me. Okay. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's get out of this dump.
With a big smile, Bree donned her new coat again, clasped it shut with her shiny belt, and then wore her handbag proudly on her shoulder. They exited the shop, but before leaving the mall, Finch pointed to the food court. Bree hadn't eaten much, but after the trip to Saint Laurent, she seemed happier to see all the food options. Finch didn't want to eat in a public space, though.
Let's just grab some things and head back.
He mumbled. Bree pointed to a Blaze Pizza.
I love that place.
Sure.
Finch then gestured to a Baskin-Robbins.
You want that too?
Really? Yes, that sounds so good right now.
Perfect. Let's get an unreasonable amount and head out. Okay, now they're in his living room. They're watching Princess Problems 18 and eating pizza.
Princess Coralina's my favorite. In the last movie, she had amnesia. She couldn't remember who her family was.
Finch dunked his sausage pizza into half-melted chocolate ice cream and then took a bite.
Who's the lady on screen now?
Bite. A bite.
Let's try that again.
Then took a bite.
Who's the lady on screen now?
That's Maddie. She's technically Princess Coraline's cousin. She has a claim to the throne and wants to take it.
Fuck Maddie.
Oh my god.
Who's the lady on screen now?
That's Maddie. She's technically Princess Coraline's cousin. She has a claim to the throne and wants to take it.
Fuck Maddie.
Finch dunked the crust of his slice into the ice cream and took another bite. Bree snuggled up into her $10,000 outfit and giggled.
Does that even taste good? It looks gross.
Don't knock it until you try it. You try it.
Have you had pizza and ice cream before?
Finch chortled as he grabbed another slice.
All the time, kid.
It-
All the time, kid. Kid.
Is that why you look like a bum?
After dunking another slice into the ice cream, Finch shrugged.
Who cares? Right now we're doing whatever we want.
But after that statement, Bree's smile vanished. She turned her attention to her own pizza and half-melted ice cream. She had 3 flavors, each more decadent than the last. Despite her beautiful clothing, all the pizza she could want, and sundaes made of the most flavorful ice cream. More silent tears streamed down her face. Finch muted the TV.
What's wrong? What's wrong?
I just want my old life back,
Bree whispered. With a sigh, Finch sank a bit deeper into his recliner.
Me too.
Sometimes, in the darkness of his apartment, it was easy to his recliner.
Me too.
Some of his
Let me get rid
apartment
of that.
TV.
What's wrong?
I just want my old life back.
Bree whispered,
There we go.
deeper into his recliner.
Yeah. Don't want too many sighs in a row. That first one was extracurricular. All right.
Once she was composed, she turned her attention to Finch.
You said your brother is dead? It's dead?
Killed. He was killed.
Dead?
Killed. He was killed.
Did you ever catch who did it?
Bree asked, her voice so quiet Finch almost didn't hear it.
No. No, I never did. No, I never did.
Then, do you think you'll be able to catch Mum's killer?
Definitely.
Bree rubbed her face a second time, then she sat up straighter in the chair.
How can you be sure if you didn't catch your brother's killer?
With half a smile, Finch glanced over.
Because whoever killed your mother has already made a terrible mistake that cost them everything.
With wide eyes, Bree leaned onto the armrest of her recliner.
Really? What?
The person who shot at us when we were at the university?
Finch sat up, knocked over some food wrappers, and then shifted his weight around on his chair.
They're in cahoots with the murderer.
His chair.
They're in cahoots with the murderer.
The shooter isn't the murderer? How do you know?
The murderer didn't try to outright kill you, right? If the man killed your mother without an issue, he could have gotten you easily. I think this shooter is someone different. Someone who didn't care if they spilled the blood of a little girl.
Bree's eyes remained wide.
And we know where the shooter is. And we have an infinite amount of time to...
Okay, so is that actually supposed to be her saying that?
Well, I'm not looking at the actual manuscript in front of me.
Okay.
It could be her.
And we have an infinite amount of time to get the drop on him.
Okay. I mean, it seemed like it just, there's no indication that that's her speaking in the text.
Well, I can check really quick. I just have to bring up my...
Well, it says Bree. Like the best clue here is Bree's eyes remained wide.
Yeah. Well, it probably is. I mean, she's having a
so
conversation with them.
all
They're
right.
just deducing it out.
Good. All right. Just wanted to make sure. All right, 241. I think I got time for one more chapter.
"4:56 a.m. Finch had once again brewed Bree the last midnight raspberry tea, and then they flew out the door. They weren't headed to Bree's house. They went straight for the University of the Pacific. Finch parked close to the faculty parking lot, but not in it, and then
Actually-
walked onto the massive campus.
I checked the manuscript. It is, it's Adair who says that.
Okay,
It's not Bree.
got it.
So you were right to question. It seemed fine. I didn't mind if she was then also adding to the conversation, but this is actually Finch in the book.
It's up to you whether you want me to change it or not.
Sure, keep it like it is written in the book.
Okay. And we know where the shooter is. And we have an infinite amount of time to get the drop. Let's see. Okay. He says him is italicized here.
Yes.
So, okay. To get the drop on... Oh, because he got the drop on them.
Yeah.
And we know where the shooter is. And we have an infinite amount of time to get the drop on him. There we go.
They weren't headed to Bree's house. They went straight for the University of the Pacific. Finch parked close to the faculty parking lot, but not in it, and then walked onto the massive campus. There were no gates, which made everything easier. It was chillier than before. Fog haunted their steps. Bree stayed close to Finch, her gigantic coat on her shoulders and the mark of Kronos on her arm. When they crossed the faculty parking lot, she pointed to the dwarf hole by the trees.
We're not going to speak with him.
Finch stated. With a nervous glance, Bree asked,
Why are we here? What if I get shot again? Why are we here? What if I get shot again?
If that does happen, we'll learn some more valuable information.
She grabbed the side of Finch's coat and tugged. He stopped and turned to face her, a frown already set in place. He was prepared to snap at her, remind her who the expert in this situation was. But she stared up at him through her eyelashes and frowned back.
I don't want to get shot again,
Bree whispered. For some reason, Finch couldn't seem to muster the same level of irritation. He swallowed some of his sarcastic words and sighed.
Listen, you probably won't get shot.
He motioned to their cold surroundings.
The sun hasn't burned away the fog yet. It would be difficult to get a good aim on us. The sun hasn't burned away the fog yet. It would be difficult to get a good aim on us.
Bree nodded once. When she didn't seem reassured, Finch pulled her a bit closer.
Trust me.
Then he knelt. He pointed to the nearest building. The fog swirled around the red brick walls, but the mist wasn't thick enough to obscure the rooftops. While the windows were practically hidden, Finch could at least see everything he needed to.
Look, this is around where we were standing when you were shot.
So callous.
Bree stared at him.
Do you think this is reassuring? Because it's not.
He snapped his fingers and gestured to the fog.
Wait, this is... Okay, I thought he was trying to get her attention. He's doing this for the fog. Is he just, like...
Yeah, he's
Doing
trying to
that in
get her
front of-
back on
okay,
track.
okay.
Trying to be like, hey, no, this
He
is...
snapped his fingers.
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Because it's not.
He snapped his fingers and gestured to the fog.
Can you see any windows? Pay attention. What we need to look for are the number of buildings that have a view of this parking lot. See?
Finch pointed to a second rooftop.
That's 2. That's 2.
Then he pointed to the last building nearby.
And that's 3. There are only 3 places the shooter could have been when he fired on us. There are only 3 places the shooter could have been when he fired on us.
An icy wind rushed over the empty... Finch kept this new bit of information in his... Which was odd, because Finch knew Dr. Colton would drive into the parking lot around 7:48 a.m. Finch kept this new bit of information in his mind as he glanced around. No other vehicles.
You think the shooter is in one of the buildings right now?
Bree whispered.
He's somewhere right now. So let's find out if he was here before we spotted Dr. Colton.
Finch motioned to the first building.
Come on, let's go.
What are you doing?
Bree asked.
I'm gonna pick the lock. I'm gonna pick the lock.
Finch muttered as he withdrew 2 small wires from the container.
You're not going to use magic?
Never play an ace when a 2 will do, kid.
Finch leaned in close to the door and slowly inserted the wires. Bree stepped over to his side. Then she moved her face near the handle, her eyes practically inches away from Finch's work. He grumbled a complaint, but was the kid going to listen? Of course not.
Oh, okay. He actually says something there.
Away from Finch's work.
Close enough.
He grumbled a complaint, but was the kid going away from Finch's work?
Close enough.
He grumbled a complaint, but was the kid going to listen? Of course not. The lock came undone with a click. Finch stood straight, tucked away his tools, and then pushed open the door.
Let's go.
Can you use magic to pick locks?
Bree asked as she stepped into the building.
Of course.
Will we maybe use that in the future? If the lock is too big or complicated or something?
Maybe.
Finch grumbled.
Really?
Finch walked inside and the
Annie
The
does a
building-
great job with Breeze. Really?
She's doing a great job of like keeping her naive but still intelligent, I think.
Yeah, it's great.
The building hadn't been used in some time. The perfect place for a shooter. Finch pointed to the stairs.
That way.
How do you know?
Bree asked.
The bullet struck you and Dr. Colton from a high angle, which means the shooter was up a few stories. We should search the rooms with the best vantage point on the parking lot, and then wait until 7:50 to see if we can spot the shooter.
Bree walked next to Finch as they headed to the stairs.
You actually remember what time I got shot?
She asked.
You bet your ass I remember.
Shot?
You bet your ass I remember.
Finch opened the door to the stairwell and went for the 3rd story. The steps were hard cement slabs, another indicator the building was older.
I take special note of the time whenever anything happens.
Bree took the steps 2 at a time, effortlessly keeping up with Finch.
Because your time powers allow you to keep rewinding the day? You keep track of everything so you can, like, change things?
Something like that.
The building was older.
I take happens. This is 2.
Bree took the step.
There we go.
Will you teach me? Bree asked, staying within 3 feet of Finch at all times.
Teach you what? Teach you what?
How to be so observant.
What?
How to be so observant. And how to use magic like you do. And how to be a detective.
He gave her a sideways glance.
Listen, we need to focus. Maybe after, when we're not hunting a killer, I'll give you a few pointers.
Really?
She hustled close to him.
I would like that. It would be awesome to do all the stuff you do.
Uh-huh.
All the stuff you do.
Uh-huh.
Finch wanted to add,
It's all fun and games until someone dies.
What a downer.
You don't think my father is the killer anymore, right?
Bree asked, breaking the silence between them. Finch kept his gaze out the window.
No.
Why?
I thought your father had killed your mother when this was a simpler case. A personal case. But if there are at least 2 people involved, the murderer in your house and now a shooter in a tower, that tells me there's a lot more going on here. Far outside your father's modus operandi.
Bree smiled.
And you believe my story? You believe he took Papa?
Yes. Okay, let me make sure I got that pronunciation right.
Oh, modus operandi.
Yeah. I can never remember. I don't know why Latin shouldn't be so hard for me to remember, because the pronunciation rules of all the of everything are pretty straightforward and consistent. Let's see here.
I think I use them a couple times because they're really frequent in law. Like
Yeah.
they're in all law cases, and cops use them all the time and stuff like that. So
Right.
sorry.
Modus operandi.
Operandi.
Although I don't think I have ever heard it pronounced that way.
Really? Is the way I pronounce it the way you usually hear it?
That is how if somebody had a gun to my head, I would have said that was the way you pronounce it. But
Okay.
you should probably go with whatever is official, because I don't know.
I mean, honestly, I don't mind going with incorrect but commonly used. You know what I mean? Like, okay, do you think this is the type of character? Do you think he would specifically
Say it wrong.
say it?
Probably,
say it,
because
yeah.
I'm basing him off of most of the PIs I worked with when we were when we did the law office. So that's how I would imagine he'd said it.
Okay.
Again, I've never heard it said the official way. Then
Right. Let's leave it. It's fine for it to be wrong if his character would say it that way.
I'm gonna get a negative review. Someone's gonna be like, "You didn't pronounce modus operandi."
No,
or
see that's the thing, is that's what we're here for. We get to take the blame for that. Like no one blames the author for how the narrator pronounces things. Right? So.
You say that, but I've also got negative reviews that are like, "Amazon delivered my book crumpled, 1 star," and I'm like, "Oh, jeez." But it's fine. It's fine. Oh, someone left a comment, Henry.
Yeah.
With the pronunciation guide.
So I can't read that shit. I don't.
Yeah, the pronunciation.
I should be able to know I should be able to. Like, this is something, I should have been required to take a college course on this shit. But nope. I'm flying without a license, sir.
Oh, well, Henry's saying that it's both ways. So your pronunciation was correct. That's great, because that's the only way I've ever heard it.
Good. Accidentally got it right. Perfect. All right. So, all right, let's see. This kid, he says kid here. It seems like maybe he had a revelation as he's spying on Dr. Colton, and he's kind of like, there's like this dread that's building up in him, and he's like, oh shit, we need to move now. We need to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, he needs to go see him because I think a part of the narration that you skipped over so we can get back to the dialogue was that Dr. Colton was at the University of the Pacific much earlier, like, so he leaves and has to come back. So clearly he was here doing something, and he's like, oh, this is interesting. So yeah, that's where we are.
Okay. Kid?
Finch said.
It's acting is so funny because this kid here is like maybe the most difficult line for me to deliver in this entire session. It's just one word, right? But what I want from this word is for everyone else to know how he's feeling and like even his posture and like the potential of his actions here. You know, like you know when someone sounds kind of hesitant because they're focused on something, but they're starting to act like their body's taking over as their mind is kind of left behind, and then so that's what we're looking for with this kid. With this kid delivery, so it's not easy.
I'm struggling to get them all to fit.
Kid.
Finch said.
There we go. That's the one. Like you can feel him like pulling the binoculars away, but he's still looking.
Yeah, he's intense, like where he's like, oh, okay, we got to do this.
Kid.
Finch said.
You can call me Bree.
She slid off the desk.
And maybe I can call you Adair? That's a unique name. I like it.
We're leaving.
Like it.
We're leaving.
Finch ignored her comment and headed for the door.
We are?
Bree kept pace as they exited the study room and headed for the stairs. Even when Finch hustled, she managed to stay right next to him.
What's happening? Did you spot the shooter?
We're going to follow Dr. Colton.
The moment Dr. Colton drove off, Finch started his engine.
We're really going to follow him?
Bree asked. She glanced at the clock.
What is he doing up so early?
I don't know. We're about to find out.
For several minutes, she seemingly studied the vehicle, her attention never wavering.
What are you doing?
Finch asked.
You probably shouldn't sit like that. You could get hurt.
Wavering.
What are you doing?
Finch asked.
You probably shouldn't sit like that. You could get hurt.
I'm trying to glean information. Maybe I can learn something.
Finch chuckled to himself.
Learn anything yet?
I'm trying to glean information. Maybe I can learn something.
Learn anything yet?
Well, I memorized his license plate.
Bree scooted back into her seat.
What information do you think is important?
The route this man is taking. He's avoiding all the larger streets and taking back roads.
Finch motioned to their residential surroundings.
I suspect our professor doesn't want to be spotted.
Bree nodded along with his words.
Oh, I see.
She glanced back at Dr. Colton's car and...
All right.
Finch stood on one side of the shrubs and watched as Dr. Colton parked near the police cars in front of Bree's house.
That lying son of a bitch. That lying son of a bitch.
Finch muttered. Bree poked her head around the side of the massive shrub.
When we met Dr. Colton before, didn't he say he didn't know Mom had been killed?
That's right.
That's right.
right.
He really is a lying son of a bitch.
Finch
Let's give her some time there.
Didn't know Mum had been killed?
That's right.
He really is a lying son of a bitch.
Yeah, there we go.
After a long exhale, Finch shoved his hands into his coat pockets.
Okay, new plan. I'm going to rewind time, and we're going to investigate the labs at the university. Clearly, your father and Dr. Colton were working on something.
What about the shooter?
Bree rubbed her arms.
Kid, we have time as an ally. We'll get to everything. And since this will probably be an easy method to gather information, we should go with this first. And since this will probably be an easy method to gather information, we should go with this first. Fighting a shooter in an abandoned university study hall is the more difficult. And since this will probably be an easy method to gather information, we should go with this first. Fighting a shooter in an abandoned university study hall. And should go with this first. Fighting a shooter in an abandoned university study hall is the more difficult route. We'll save it for later. We should go with this first. Fighting a shooter in an abandoned university study... damn it, that didn't blend. Let's start from the top.
Her arms.
Okay, new plan. I'm going to rewind time, and we're going to investigate the labs at the university. Nope. Wrong line.
Her arms.
Kid, we have time as an ally. We'll get to everything. And since this will probably be an easy method to gather information, we should go with this first. Fighting a shooter in an abandoned university study hall is the more difficult route. We'll save it for later. There we go. Later.
Fighting the shooter meant there was a slight chance Finch could die before using his power. He didn't want that. If he could avoid the confrontation and gather information in other ways, he'd take it. Bree clapped her hands together once.
Right, we can do this as many times as we want, right? We can catch Dr. Colton and all his lies, and find out what necklace Papa was making, and then we can fight the shooter in an abandoned building? Like we're action stars in our own movie?
You got it.
That's so cool. Oh, and you can call me Bree.
Sure.
Movie?
You got it.
That's so cool. Oh, and you can call me Bree.
Sure.
Finch rewound.
It's totally not listening.
Yeah.
Bree.
Sure.
Finch rewound time, draining color from the world. The muted objects around him melted away, leaving him in a white void so bright Finch had to close his eyes. When he opened them again, he was back in his bedroom, wrapped up in his blankets. 4:34 a.m.
Perfect. All right, well, that is it for today. These have been the cold reads for Time Marked Warlock. Thank you so much, Shami Stovall, author of the book, for coming to the stream and helping direct me into this voice.
Well, thank you for having me. I don't think I did much directing, mostly just laughing at the performances. They were
Positive
great.
feedback is good too. So, hey, if I'm on the right track, that's great.
They were beautiful. So you're definitely nailing it.
Alrighty. Well, you want to tell everybody anything else before we go?
The book's going to come out late August. So if it sounded interesting or you were having fun, please consider checking it out.
All right. Thank you so much once again, Shami. Thank you, everybody, for coming and hanging out. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this content, and you can browse our library or watch for the next one. And I hope you all have a great weekend. Watch out for this to come out. And that's it. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.